Okay, I call to order a meeting of the Hartford Selectboard at 6 o'clock on February 3rd, 2026. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Is there someone who'd like to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all for coming tonight. There is no local liquor control board tonight and no local cannabis control board. Next is order of agenda. Are there any changes to the order of agenda? Okay, all right. Then first order under the select board is public comment. Please state your name, residence, and remember you have 3 minutes to speak, no personal attacks. If you wish to speak on an agenda item under 5A to D, please hold your comments until then when you'll have 2 minutes to talk. Okay, so we will open with public comment.
Hi, Marie Elvin, Hartford Avenue. I just wanted to go over the email I sent out about Decker Towers versus Twin Pines and the things that are familiar that's happening in both places. The residents up there are being overrun and taken over by drug addicts. It's become a hub for drug deals, for drug use and drug distribution. It's a disruption to the other residents. They can't sleep, creating fear and isolation. They don't dare to leave their rooms. They're inviting drug customers into party. The problems are ongoing and they continue to grow. This environment is corrosive not only to all the tenants that are living in these facilities, but especially those who are trying to be in recovery. Many go into relapse. Police aren't apprehending the dealers, and they're now using stun guns and tasers and pepper spray to deal with the residents and the drug addicts that have come in. For me, the difference between a drug addict and a substance use disorder is needles. And the needles are a big problem, and drugs are a big problem. But people who are disabled, in recovery, poor or whatever, should not be forced to live under these situations just to have housing because of not proper management by Twin Pines. Thank you.
Any others? Okay. Is there anybody online? Thank you. Now. Yes. Thank you. Okay.
My name is Gary Farnsworth. I live on 48 Hawthorne Street in Wilder. I have a huge issue about our water system. 3 years ago, they came and posted saying they're going to replace these pipes. Now, on our street, it breaks down 3 or 4 times a year. Before Cumberland Farms, we're paying a lot of money for each time they try to fix this. And that's just totally ridiculous. And I definitely agree with her as far as our Twin Pines goes. We watch these people on the corners with electric bike, cell phone, and all that, and they're homeless. And we're trying to build, not all of them are like that, but we've got to really consider what's going on. But the water issue this town's spending tons of money just for them to go out to fix these pipes. And it was supposed to be done 3 years ago. And if you look back at your records, you're going to see how many streets it's the same place every 3 months, 4 months. It's ridiculous.
Do you know that there is a bond on the ballot to do this, that it's been put on the ballot for the voters in order to fix a lot of these problems in Wilder.
But was it not on the ballot 3 years ago?
I don't believe
Where
it
that-
was. They may
wasn't?
have done a study at that time in order to move it in that direction, but I was on the board and I don't remember it being on the ballot at that
Because I don't have that much time, but same token, what they don't remember, especially you get your water bill, is when it's shut off, you have to run everything in your house because of the rust, whatever's transpiring. And that's still on us using water, and of course, it's part of the sewer too. That's not fair. And I'm retired, and we're all on or I am anyways, on a budgeted limit, you know?
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
do we know for sure, I believe that Hawthorne Street is included in what's in the bond article for repairs, but can we maybe follow up?
I don't have that in front of me, but I could give you a call, Mr. Farnsworth. We do have a big bond on the ballot to address a lot of Wilder water infrastructure problems by replacing transmission lines. If you wanted to let me know how to reach you, I'd be happy to do it.
I will definitely do that.
Okay.
because This last year, it's been 4 times.
Yep.
Like I say, it's cost to myself.
Yep.
And say nothing about my neighbors.
I think we all agree it's long overdue, and so we're hopeful we'll get community support for that article.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Hi, good evening. Heidi Buto, White River Junction. Not to go back on what you said, because I do believe it's a very big concern to a lot of residents in different parts of town, but I'd like to give a shout out to the employees that show up every day and do a great job in our town and work under very difficult concerns and situations and go unnoticed and unthanked. A lot of citizens do not know what I'm speaking of, and I'm not going to go into details on specifics tonight. I do have some concerns that I have not brought to attention and I feel need to be brought to attention once again. In Hartford Village, along our beautiful brand new bridge on the VA Cutoff Road with River Road, there is a very dilapidated rundown camper that was on Chuck Gordon's property and now on town property. I have been writing to the town since April of 2025, and it was brought over onto town property. There are still people living inside, and there is a walkway shoveled out to it. This is breaking our ordinances, beyond breaking our ordinances. It is not habitable. It does not have water, does not have running sewage, does not have anything. And I'd really like to know why our ordinances in our town are not being followed. They are not being enforced. I'd also like to know our parking meters in downtown White River. I don't know if our kiosks are up and running. We've had discussion upon discussion about these. We have a no parking ban in White River Junction at night. I'm grateful for that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not for asking people to pay for parking in downtown to utilize our businesses, but the South Main Street parking lot is a very large concern of mine. I fought for ththose ordinances to be enforced in that parking lot. I fought for those signs. You can ask Joe Major that sat on that board, Kim Souza, everybody. I fought for that sign, those signs and that ordinance in that parking lot. Yet this past Saturday, when I left my second property, there are 8 spots utilized by cars that have not been moved since before the big storm. We have vehicles down there. We have motorcycles down there. We have enclosed camp trailers down there, not campers, little trailers. Where are all of the tenants that can't park on the streets? Where are the downtown employees of businesses supposed to go? Where are the overflow of businesses that have people going to utilize the restaurants or the shops downtown supposed to go if they don't want to pay the kiosks? I'm sorry, but our ordinances in our town really need to be enforced. And it's high tide that our board steps up, please. And I'm sorry if I'm getting angry, but we need action. And I'm begging you to please start taking that footing. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And thank you.
thank you, Heidi.
Hey, everybody. My name is Will Town. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm the new executive director at Upper Valley Haven, and I've met a couple of you already, which is fantastic, and met some of the folks in attendance here as well tonight previously. Just wanted to state I've been very impressed and still trying to get to know everybody, but really impressed with the police department, fire and EMS, and a lot of the support that the town of Hartford does provide to the Haven as well as to its residents. I know that there's a lot of problems that we're facing right now, housing certainly being the top of that list, as well as some of our larger systems that we have limited control over, such as substance use systems and mental health systems. But I think, as we just heard, we have people that are living in places that are not suitable for human habitation. And I think that is just a great example of why it's important to continue the development of affordable housing. So just want to say thank you to all, and hello.
Thank you. Is there someone on? Yeah.
Mike Morris, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much for recognizing me. I appreciate it. I'm calling in tonight because I've been a little bit behind on things, but I want to first of all compliment Public Works this last storm with a lack of salt and everything else. What a hell of a job they did on the roads. Even these back ones out here in Queechee still have snow on them, but they did a good job. My main reason we called it is that I just got caught up on the January 20th meeting where you actually did a special approval of a warning on the ballot and everything else with the apartheid. And I was a little disturbed because I did not know, and I did not see in any of the warnings that there was going to be a decision made about this for that meeting. When I read the agenda, it mentions nothing of it. And that kind of disturbed me that a decision to vote was made that night without a warning. And if somebody could explain to me how this came about, which I feel was not properly warned the people to speak about it, happened.
Thank you, Mike. Want to tell Mike what we have discussed this before with other individuals.
Sure, I'll do my best. The agenda is usually posted Thursday morning by shipping it out to the Valley News and then posting it online with the agenda as it was approved at Wednesday's Select Board agenda setting meeting with the leadership of the Select Board. That's Mike and Mary. So as of noon on Wednesday, the Select Board agenda was approved, and it did contain a line item to approve the town warning, which then becomes the town ballot, essentially. After that approval, the petition came forward from the clerk's office, and as soon as we had that, we added it to the agenda package posted online, and then the Select Board and the public, some of whose members were aware of the change because they had looked at the packet, had an opportunity to discuss and debate whether to add the anti-apartheid ballot petition onto the ballot for March 3rd. And the decision by the board was to include it on the theory that it had been an issue that had been presented several times in the community. And the board decided that although they were insufficient signatures to force it to be on the ballot, that the Select Board has the power to decide to add things to the ballot. And again, they took that vote to do so.
Follow up?
I'm sorry, Mike?
May I follow up?
Yes.
I mean, I appreciate the answer, but there's nowhere on the agenda that mentions adding an item to the ballot. Nowhere on the agenda that was presented to the public was that item added. That's an actionable warning. I do not see it on the agenda anywhere that was posted. If you're telling me I have to go to the town website and pull up dig into the small stuff, I don't think that's a proper warning, and that bothers me. Like they said, review and approve the warnings. It didn't say add or delete or change. And I feel it was inappropriate. And I will stand by this. And I think we're hiding behind some clouds here. This is not open open to the public on what was happening. I had no idea you were going to change or add a warning to the ballot by all the posts that I read. So I made my statement. I want it to be read publicly. I want to be heard that we need to do a better job. I know you're all trying, and I appreciate it. But we need to do a better job here. I think this was not properly done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
May I? I don't even know posted online where to get to that.
Can you come to the mic, please? Can you come to the mic, please? So that people online can hear you.
Ray Farnsworth again from Wilder. When people say posted online, I don't even know the same. I have no clue. I didn't even really know about this meeting until the neighbor told me about it. And that's knowledge that I would prefer. I know I'm getting elderly, but
These are posted in many places and they're, you know, if you don't have a computer.
I do have a
Okay,
computer,
well,
but
it's, if you go to the website. And
I
you
don't
go,
know what the website is.
at town, yeah, that's where I go. Out of Hartford and then at Denver.
I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Ida.
I mean, I think, thank you so much for sharing that feedback. Really appreciate it. John is our town manager and I definitely hope you can connect with him and exchange. Yeah, because he can definitely provide you all the important information in terms of how to access what's going on here and how to listen from home if you don't want to come in, and there's various ways to do that.
I mean, I've been here 22 years, but I will talk.
Yeah, we've had turnover in town management. Luckily, we have a really solid person on our team now who's very good at helping with communication. But thank you for letting us know.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. Did somebody else?
I just wanted to briefly speak to that. So there are, when you do get up to that website, there are two components to the meeting. There's the agenda, and then there's the we'll call it the supporting documents. And for example, for this meeting that we prepared for, there are 111 pages of supporting materials associated with this meeting. So if you really want to get into the thick of it, you know, you have the agenda, but you also have the supporting documents around the meeting. And most meetings are 100+ documents. And candidly, like, you know, from my perspective, when I used to sit over there instead of here, you know, we've made incredible efforts to communicate out, you know, give information. We have a communications person now. So I encourage you to reach out and do the research, do the reading, because it is there. And I apologize if it feels like it's convoluted, but there's definitely a lot of materials out there well before the meeting that you have an opportunity to look over before the meeting starts. So thank you.
Knowledge is
Thank you. Anybody else, Ryan?
Yes, Sue Ellen, go ahead.
Sue, go ahead.
Hi there. Hi there. Sue Ellen Parmenter. I am a business owner, a taxpayer, and a landlord in Hartford, Vermont. And I wanted to discuss the Twin Pines housing because I have firsthand knowledge, have been in the building, experienced some things. The lady who spoke first is absolutely correct. The drug addicts are taking over the buildings.
Sue?
Sue Ellen?
Sue,
Uh-huh.
if you want to talk to about the agenda item that is 5A, the grant for affordable housing that involves Twin Pines.
Yep.
Could you wait until we move that to that piece?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, so then we will close public comment and move on to.
I'm so sorry.
Somebody else? Okay, go ahead.
It's Mike again.
Mike?
Go ahead.
Hello, I guess maybe I didn't make myself clear, but warnings are supposed to be posted clearly for citizens to understand, I think 48 hours in advance or whatever. The agenda, as it's posted, mentioned nothing about any action being taken on item G. The agenda that was posted on listserv, as far as I don't know about the Valley News, whatever, but unless you went to the town website, it was not posted. And I think the state statute says it must be posted in paper print on 2 municipality sites. What was it properly done? Was all this posted properly? That's my question. I'm sorry, just this got lost somewhere. I mean, and this is a major decision on my behalf, the way I feel. It got slipped through, and I think it's unfair that we have regulations on when you get petitions done and signatures you need and everything else, and you made a special exception here. It's bothersome. I guess I've said what I need to say. I wish you'd look at it into it and think about it a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Ida, you had a comment?
I'll just say very briefly, because I know we're not supposed to have a back and forth, but Mike, thanks so much for your concern. I think other folks share that. I do want to just say that John can correct me if he's wrong, but John did run this approach by an attorney as well as our town moderator to ensure that we could discuss adding an item under the town, the warrant agenda item as listed. So there was some vetting of this approach. I definitely appreciate that it wasn't as transparent as it could be, and I completely agree with you that we do need to do better. But it wasn't completely overlooked as a potential concern, and we did get some feedback to make sure that it was appropriate. But I agree with you. It could have been warned more clearly and more transparently. So thank you for commenting.
Thank you, Ida.
Mike does have his hand raised.
I think if he has some personal questions, he should address it to John. Okay. All right, thank you for that. Is there anybody else? Okay, so we will move on to select board comments and announcements. I'll start with Ashley.
Yeah, I just want to echo what some others have mentioned about DPW. Just giving some big thanks and praise to the Department of Public Works, who is dealing with a salt shortage, and we had a water main break on the day that it was near 0 degrees outside, and there were folks out there getting that fixed as quickly as possible. So I'm really grateful for our Department of Public Works. And yeah, I think that's all for today.
Thank you. Tim?
No comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Mike?
Nothing tonight.
Ida?
No comments.
Miranda? No comments. Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just circle back to the last topic. I think we, as a town, did a really poor job of warning the AFC, the apartheid-free community pledge on the warning. However, we didn't violate open meeting law, as I understand it. I reached out to VLCT after the fact because it's good to know when you do make mistakes, it's good to know what they were. So I wanted to make sure that we hadn't made a mistake. And an attorney at VLCT responded, with respect to your specific question, was the topic of the apartheid-free pledge warned properly? He responded, it doesn't appear that it was a specific item on the agenda that you linked to. However, I don't know that it had to be. Vermont law on this matter states that, quote, a meeting agenda shall contain sufficient details concerning the specific matter to be discussed by the public body. And then he references a section of the statute. Essentially, he goes on to say that you don't need to warn every single little item, even though the board took action on this. And so I initially felt we had perhaps not warned it properly, but we have warned it properly, or did warn it properly. It's just that we didn't do a particularly good job, and we can be more transparent and should be more transparent in the future. So, but again, I don't think we've gone astray of open meeting law on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, so then we will move on to appointments. Is Jason Kelley here?
Jason Kelley is not here.
Okay. So would you like us to put it on the agenda for the next meeting?
That's generally the tradition, is to have the new person
Right.
present.
Right.
Yes, is he online?
Oh, is he online?
Not knowing with that name.
We were led to believe that he would be here tonight. Okay,
We were all led to believe
Okay.
that's why we are here.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so hopefully we'll meet Jason next round. All right. So next would be the town manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a reminder, we do have our town meeting cycle well underway. Budget and Candidates Night will take place Monday, February 23rd at 7 PM at the high school auditorium. Town and school district meeting will be held Saturday, February 28th at 10 AM, again at the high school auditorium. And voting day is Tuesday, March 3rd from 7 AM to 7 PM at the high school gymnasium. I'm pleased to report that the town has hired a finance director who will begin work on March 30th. The town has also hired an assistant finance director who will begin work several weeks earlier, this February 23rd, so less than 3 weeks from now. Of course, this will mean that at some point, our interim finance director's services will no longer be needed, with timing to be determined. Meanwhile, I'd like to offer my sincere thanks to all who have stepped forward to assist the finance department during these past several weeks. Speaking of finance, a friendly reminder that the second installment of property taxes are due this Friday, February 6th. I do want to touch on this issue of road salt, as it will be on the agenda at the next meeting, hopefully for an approval of an emergency purchase of road salt that we did authorize in these last few days when an opportunity came forward that we just couldn't pass by. So we feel a little bit better that we've managed to acquire some road salt. It's not all that we will want, but it was something that the new DPW director, Todd Law, and Jeremy Delisle, who's our operations deputy director, strongly advocated for. So stay tuned for more on that. Meanwhile, as to other departments, I can point out that the Environmental Sustainability Coordinator and the Town Planner are continuing work updating the hazard mitigation plan. There will be a community meeting to discuss what is going into this update, and the drafting of the plan will start. Department of Public Works, again, welcomed Todd Law as the incoming Public Works Director and said farewell to Brian Gazda as outgoing retiring director. The outgoing director went over the transition plan he had prepared for the new director. They met with external consultants working on DPW-related projects and toured DPW facilities together. The Assistant Director for Operations, again, Jeremy Delisle, coordinated staff and resources for the major snow event of January 25 through 27, and a major water main break the day before on January 24th, as Ashley has graciously mentioned. We are, again, as I said, researching options regarding our limited road salt supply, but have made a couple of recent acquisitions of supply in these last couple of days. The Highway Division points out that they've performed snow removal on operations and on sidewalks January 15th, January 16th, January 17th, January 19th, January 20th, January 22nd, January 25th, 6th, and 7th, and removed snow from downtown White River on January 29th. So again, kudos to them for all their hard work. Parks and Rec reports that Velco will be performing routine vegetation management work along their transmission line at the town's Hartford Kilowatt Park, starting on January 28th. The vegetation work should take about a week to complete and will include mowing with heavy equipment and cutting trees both mechanically and with a chainsaw, and select hand cutting and trimming. Please be alert and take precautions if you are in Kilowatt Park. We recommend avoiding the work area if at all possible for everyone's safety. Anybody with questions about this can contact Marina Vitagliano at 802-770-6292 at Velco. Department of Sure, that's absolutely right. It's 802-770-6292. Or she can be emailed at mvitagliano, that's MVITAGLIANO @velco.com. Department of Planning and Development is working on their Vermont 802 Homes for All Phase 3 program. They're continuing to work with the state on the community-wide planning exercise in Hartford to evaluate different permanent ready housing model designs. The event will be held on February 11th at the Bugby Center from 4:30 PM to 7:30 PM and is open to the public. The fire department notes that over the past couple of weeks, their crews have been responding to numerous emergencies during periods of extremely cold temperatures and multiple winter storms. These conditions have presented unique challenges, including icy roads, snow-covered hydrants, and increased risks of structure fires due to heating equipment. Their team has been working tirelessly to ensure the safety of our community, handling calls ranging from motor vehicle accidents, car fires, fuel spills, chimney fires, and medical emergencies. Chief Cooney wants to commend all personnel for their professionalism and dedication during these demanding conditions. He's offered up some cold weather fire safety tips. Keep space heaters at least 3 feet away from anything flammable and never leave them unattended. Next, have chimneys and heating systems inspected annually. Next, ensure smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms are working properly, and operate generators outdoors and away from windows to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning. They've also suggested that folks consider adopting a hydrant near you to keep it open and accessible to DPW. Keeping hydrants clear of snow can save valuable time in an emergency and help us protect lives and property. The communications and media specialist has updated the town and school meeting cycle webpage to include warnings, the info night recording, and the local candidates list. Hartford Police Department reports several events involving the arrest of people with outstanding warrants in town for everything from possession of heroin to violation of probation, aggravated assault with a weapon, assault, criminal threatening, aggravated disorderly conduct, etc. They'd like to thank the Norwich Police for their assistance at an event on Tuesday, January 20th. On the following day, the following evening, they report also making arrests for folks with outstanding warrants on fentanyl trafficking, false reports to law enforcement, possession of stimulants, narcotics, and depressants, including fentanyl. The Outreach Division conducted street outreach to attempt to assist those without permanent housing during the severe cold weather. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report, John. If someone chooses to adopt a hydrant, do they notify the fire department or?
I didn't sense that there was a formal adoption process, just being mindful of the fact that if there's a hydrant in your neighborhood and you feel that it's in any way inhibited by snow accumulation around it, that might slow down fire access to it, take the initiative and clear it off. They're doing it themselves in concert with DPW, but it's a big town, a lot of hydrants. So feel free to step forward if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next item on our agenda are the board reports, motions, and ordinances. And the first one is the VCDP grant public hearing for affordable housing project at 444 Sykes Mountain Avenue. I just wanted to ask you, Lori, are you going to do a presentation or you want me to open the public hearing right away?
So if you can open it right away. I'll do the presentation, then you can go on with getting public comment.
Yeah.
And then at that time, you can decide whether or not you want to move on to the next agenda item or you want to.
Okay, so we're gonna close the select board at this moment, and we're gonna open the public hearing for affordable housing project at 444 Sykes Mountain Avenue. And I will just remind you that first of all, I want to thank you for being here. I know that there are plenty of people here who came to make comment. Please remember when you go up to the mic to recite your name, your address. You will have 2 minutes to comment or respond. Please, no personal attacks. Speak to the agenda item, which is the actual grant for portable housing. And then when we're through with this, hopefully people here will have answers to their questions. Tim?
I don't know if I'm experiencing Groundhog Day here, but you guys did like a really great presentation of this project already, right?
Yes.
So we don't necessarily need to go back through that. I mean,
Actually, you do, because this is the formal public hearing where the last one was a general. So for the benefit of the public, this is the one that has been warned. So there may be individuals that were not aware of it as a formal public hearing. So in order to meet the requirements, we do need to go through the presentation for the benefit of anyone in the public that may not have been present at the original one, which was really giving an idea to giving information to the select board to decide whether or not they wanted to go forward with a public hearing.
Thank you for that clarification.
So on that note, I want to just do a general introduction and just talk about how this program it works a little bit with the state program, and then getting more specific into the application itself. As advertised, Twin Pines Housing Trust and Evernorth are pursuing the development of a new multifamily housing of 48 units, mixed income, and that is located in the vacant air lot. Some of the improvements have already started because it is connected with another 292 unit housing project that's being done by a developer. And this is a resubmittal of an application that was put forth in to VCDP, the Vermont Community Development Program, earlier in 2025, which was not able to be funded. Just to let you know, sometimes the question comes, why is it coming to the town? It is a federal program, and in order for this program application to go forward from Twin Pines and Housing Trust and Evernorth as a development, it has to come through the municipality. That's the way the program works at the federal and state level. And then the town becomes the applicant, but at some point it does bring in Twin Pines and Housing Trust as a subrecipient for receipt of funds. There is coordination of the project by the town within that, and there are several requirements that have to be met in terms of setting up very specific legal agreements between the town and the state, and between the town and the state, and then between the town and any subrecipient. And those things are reviewed by an attorney to make a determination that it in fact does meet the requirements of the state and as well as the federal programs. So that gives you a little bit of understanding as to why it's coming in this format to the town. So the grant application is one that a preliminary one was put forth in the announcements or notifications that were published in the paper around town, as well as on the town website as required. There was a 15-day required public hearing notice, and we did meet that requirement. At this time, what I'd like to do is move over to Twin Pines Housing Trust for them to talk a little bit more about what the project entails, and then we can come back and talk a little bit more if anybody has questions, but certainly the most important piece at this stage is to open it up for the public for their comment.
Right. So we're now open to public hearing.
Thank you, Lori. I'm Bill Kelsey, project manager at Twin Pines Housing, working on the project which we're currently calling 44 Sykes Mountain Avenue. Very creative. This is a short overview. As Lori said, the main thing we're coming to is ask town's permission to submit this application for funding, which eventually will flow through the town and then be passed from the town onto the project. The project is a partnership between Twin Pines and Evernorth. We've worked together on other projects in town and nearby, the Wentworth project, Riverwalk, and Hartford Sykes. Ultimately, Twin Pines will be the property manager and sort of partner owner, and Evernorth will be the financial backer. Next slide, please. So a little bit about Twin Pines Housing, serving the Upper Valley, staff of 30, 665 rental units, 67 ownership units, and we provide housing from seniors to families and homeless, formerly homeless, and veterans. Next slide. We're working together with Evernorth. Matt Moore is remote. I'll just take this to expedite things. They're a affordable housing developer and financer that works in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. We partner with them based on their development capacity, they just do more projects than we do, their financing and their access to capital. Okay, now we'll talk a little bit about the specific project, Sykes Mountain Avenue. BlackRock has permitted the site for 48 units. Twin Pines and Evernorth have an agreement to purchase the property from BlackRock. Our purpose of that is to make 48 units of affordable housing, and BlackRock is developing 192 units on an adjacent property. This is going to be a 4-story elevator building, 48 units. You can see the unit mix there. It's a mixed income project. We have 6 units at or below 30% of AMI, area median income, 32 at 60, 10 units at 80%. You can see the amenities, parking, laundry, outdoor space, etc. Here's a site. I got another one. So that's the site plan. That's going to be tough to spin around. Yeah, it's a rectangular building towards Sykes Avenue with the parking behind it. This was planned by the planning commission. We made some slight changes from the originally approved plan that was approved by the planning commission in December.
Have to go back.
When it gets spun back around is the example of the current income levels at 80, 60, 50, and 30% of area median income based on household size. So you can see it goes from 27,000 to almost 80,000. Will be the income spread based on this year's numbers. So, as mentioned by Lori and myself previously, this is an ask for a community development block grant that gets passed from the state to the municipality. We're planning to apply for $1 million worth of funding. The town does get a small administrative fee for that. And the town has sponsored a previous application, CDBG grant back in 2020 for the Wentworth project, which is just nearby the Sykes one. So where are we in other funding? Housing, low-income housing tax credits, which are about 40% of the funding. We scored very well last year, but unfortunately didn't receive tax credits. So we're reapplying this year. We're very, very optimistic about our chances to get funding. We have applied to VHCB, which for sort of grant and loans, non-interest bearing loans. We've received $5 million commitment already, and we're resubmitting for additional $2 million this spring. Other sources of funding include the CDBG grant we're talking about, energy efficiency grants, and the project will have some permanent debt on it that is a below market rate debt because it's an affordable housing project. So that is a summary of the project, and I will yield the microphone.
Ashley?
Yeah, I was, and this maybe you maybe
great.
wanted to answer it.
Okay.
I was just wondering, are all of those units subsidized? Like, I understand that you need to be below that income level to be there, but are they subsidized rents?
Oh, so the 30% units, we have a agreement with the veterans to get vouchers for 6 of those units, 6 units. The 30% units will have vouchers that the rent is subsidized. Everyone else pays based on their income.
Income, okay.
That area needed it.
And then I just wanted to confirm, because I want to make sure I understand, is the Riverwalk property, is that 100% subsidized as well? Or are there only certain number of units there that are
So
subsidized?
unfortunately, I didn't work on the Riverwalk project.
I'm just wondering
so-
if this is kind of the same blend of like some units are subsidized, some are not.
Yeah, Ashley, I'll take that. Andrew Winter, Executive Director at Twin Pines Housing Trust for those online. So Riverwalk actually has more subsidized units than what we're envisioning here. Riverwalk had 8 units, 4 for veterans through the VASH program, the Veterans Administration Supportive Housing Program, and then 4 for homeless individuals. At this point, given what is going on at the federal level, reduction in rental assistance, there is a modest bump in the rental assistance contracts at the federal government, but basically there are no vouchers for homeless or other folks that are going to be available in the short term to medium term, depending on what goes on in Washington. So a little bit different. But only by a couple of units. So 8 at Riverwalk, 6 at Sykes Mountain Avenue. And they're all veterans.
So the 10 that's in the draft application in the agenda packet has been changed because of the federal.
Yeah, correct. That pre-application was done back in October.
Yes.
So 8 units of these 36 will be subsidized rent.
6.
6, sorry,
6.
thank you.
Yeah,
That's why I
6
clarified.
units, and they'll all be veterans with supported services provided by the VA Medical Center up the hill.
And then how will the rent for the other units be set? Will that be at market rate?
No, so if we go back to the slide, if we could go back to the slide where we had the income tiers, that slide right here, thank you. So the 30% units, and I'm pointing at the screen for those at home, the 30% units, a single person would have income below the 23,000. So that'll be for the veterans, targeted toward the veterans. Then we do not currently have any 50% units that are restricted. We're just doing 60s. So then these income limits, so the rents are set at what is affordable for somebody, a single person making no more than $46,080 can afford paying 30% of their rent, income as rent on a monthly basis. So you can kind of get there if you do the math in your head and you figure that out. And then the same 80%, again, 30% of your income, what you can afford, if your income is no more than 61,000. So again, what we've tried to do is provide an income spread here, but also one of the other things that we're trying to do, this project, again, we've been talking about the 194 units up the hill. This is an important part. All of our units have to be at or below 80% because that project is qualifying for that 194 units is qualifying for an exemption because of the affordable housing project here. So all the units have to be at or below 80% of the area median income so that they get an exemption from Act 250, which helps make that deal financially feasible. Hopefully that makes sense.
Miranda?
Just a quick clarification. So is it, if one person is moving in at 60% AMI, if they make under that, is it based on their income or is it based on the 60% AMI?
It's based on the 60% AMI. So you might have somebody who, you may have somebody whose income is lower and they're going to end up paying more than 30% of their income, but it's really, and we actually try to have a little bit of a buffer below that. So rather than have the income limits at 100% of what somebody making 61,000 can afford, we're often somewhere in the 90 to 95% range. So we're trying to provide a little bit more buffer, which means that people aren't going to get squeezed as much if their income is a little bit lower.
Pardon?
Can I ask a question?
Yes. You'll need to go up to the mic so people.
Mary, Lori has something to say.
Well, no, all I would suggest is that you complete with one application and have it go towards you in terms of the dialogue and then open it up to the general public.
Okay.
That just sends to, I think.
So you're wanting.
Well, I'm just suggesting that it might be good to allow, if you're moving on to the public.
Okay.
Because this is part of the general presentation with the applicant.
Right.
And then if you're at a point where you feel like
I thought
everybody
they were next on where it said questions, so.
Oh, okay, well, I'm
So-
sorry, I thought.
Am I rushing you?
I
don't wanna
apologize.
forget my question.
If they're, I just
Alright,
wanted to make sure that we were done with that phase of it.
Okay,
Sure.
I'm Gary Farnsworth again.
Okay.
And my
Thank you.
question is, when you started the presentation, who are the partners involved in this?
In the affordable housing,
In the bill, and you have two different partners, correct? Three of you.
two of us,
Okay.
Twin Pines Housing in Evernorth, and we're buying it from BlackRock.
Excuse me, if we're gonna crosstalk, can people speak into the microphone or
Oh.
take turns for the people at
Yeah.
home?
Okay.
Thank you.
So I believe there's a question clarifying the partnership. So the owners and developers of the affordable housing are Twin Pines Housing and Evernorth. The property is currently owned and was originally permitted by BlackRock, who will develop the property up the hill just north. And Twin Pines, Evernorth have an agreement, a legal agreement to buy the property for BlackRock for the 48 units.
Okay, and so the funds that you receive from whoever's renting, who gets that?
Can you say it again, sorry?
For the funds on the rentals, even for the VAs, who's receiving that money? Is it part of our town? Or is it Twin State in your apartment? I'm sorry, I'm not
No,
talking.
don't be sorry.
I'm new at this.
So once the apartment building is built, there'll be a new entity, 444 Sykes Mountain Avenue LLC, which will be the legal owner. It'll be a small business of that apartment building. The rents will go to it. It will pay the electricity, the property tax, the snow removal, and the mortgage. But it's restricted on how much rent they can pay. The rents have to be affordable to the numbers that were up on the screen.
So where do the profits go from? It's not going to homeless, I know that already.
So it would be great if there were profits, right? But because we're charging a reduced rent level, it's kind of a break even. Sometimes, like this project actually can take on some mortgage, like a loan to pay off, but it's your typical home mortgage is down payment 20%, mortgage 80%. For a project like this is flipped, if not more. It's 80 or 90% down payment, 10 or 20% mortgage.
One more, that's it.
Okay, you're on roll. Yeah.
But like you said, as of last year, you did not get the government funds, was it, or whatever it was?
This grant.
That, the grant, you did not get that, so apparently it becomes, what happens when you don't get that? You're not gonna turn around and sell this building to anybody else. Oh, I'm sorry.
So our intent will not be to sell the building, but should there be a catastrophic thing and something happens at Twin Pines, because of the funds that come in from the federal government or other organizations, it is perpetually affordable. Perpetually. So nobody can come in and then say, I'm gonna triple the rents and make it a luxury apartment. That answer your question?
I got so many more, I don't.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
would it make sense to have a gentleman from Twin Pines using these mics so that the public can ask questions without having to swap spaces?
Sure. Are we supposed to do that at meetings, crosstalk on things like this, or just present our
No,
questions and
this is a
issues?
public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're just trying to think that Twin Pines can move over here so they can use a different mic and then people can come up.
We're giving them.
Oh,
We can get
Where's
another
our
chair.
public comment section? Question and answer.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
public, okay, pocket.
That's what they both can see.
Yeah.
So just so I understand, because I kind of agree with what Lori was saying about keeping the structure. Are we moving into public comment now, or are we gonna allow board members to ask questions and then open it up to the public for questions?
No, we're here for the public hearing. The public is asking their questions now,
Okay,
okay?
so, okay.
And then we can add, we may learn something and add to that. Okay, go ahead, Kathy, you wanna introduce yourself?
Kathy Melisick, Wilder, Vermont, and thank you for clarifying the way, the patterns of talking. I noted that the application as presented in the select board packet asks the question of what the status of community support is for this project, and the answer provided says, quote, strong support. However, I would answer that the strong support is more likely specific to the select board and planning commission, not the overall quote unquote community. As you may know, the area has had some issues with some of the Twin Pines managed housing. One of my questions, however, was with regard to the Act 250 exemption. I spoke at the original BlackRock Simpson partnership presentation. I was not aware at that time that there were plans afoot to sell part of their property to Twin Pines. That's new to me, and perhaps I missed something. I'm a little confused as to the idea that if Twin Pines purchases a property, why would BlackRock get Act 250 exemption and or be granted a density bonus? I have long been concerned about a nonprofit such as Twin Pines, such as other area nonprofits being granted taxpayer funds for development, whether they're local, state, federal taxpayer funds for development, if, as with other Twin Pines properties, the ownership is then transferred, as it often has been, to a for-profit entity. And overall, I noted that the application also mentions that there will not be an office on site for this apartment building. Perhaps that's changed since the information that was initially presented. So I think, if we're talking about community support, as stated in the application, I'd like to know what Twin Pines is going to be doing to ameliorate any chance of similar problems, as we have all noted publicly with Twin Pines managed properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Would you like to address? some of those issues?
Yeah, so I'm happy to address some of those issues.
Maybe microphone closer.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. So I will address the fact that this is a different kind of project. We've heard some complaints, and again, I'm happy to address at the appropriate time if the select board would like me to 747 and what's kind of going on there and give you some background on that project. This is a different type of project, and again, it is more like Riverwalk. There will be a meeting room on site, a small office for signing a lease, things like that. There will not be regular staff on site because this is a literally we can look at our office at Twin Pines and look across the dealership and see this hill. So it is almost immediately adjacent to our office. So it doesn't make sense to staff an office there on a regular basis. That said, staff is expected to be there on a regular and daily basis.
Any questions about the BlackRock issue?
Could I clarify a little bit on it? Because I think what you're speaking to is when the application came before the planning commission.
No, I'm speaking to the application for the community fund that was presented in today's packet.
Right, but what you were talking about was when it was presented, you were not aware that.
When the initial BlackRock partnership presentation to initially develop the property on Sykes Mountain Avenue was presented, I don't remember there being any mention of Twin Pines buying some of that property.
Right, because, well, I just want to make it clear that this is not.
Sorry, Kathy Melisick, Wilder, Vermont.
So when applications are presented, what the requirements are, the criteria for review at that stage is completely separate from any funding sources or applications that an entity may make. We don't go into the financial makeup of what is going to comprise. There, BlackRock came in, and at that time they were permitting their project, and they identified for the purposes of the BlackRock at Act 250. It's not what we gave them a bonus. It was at Act 250. They were given an exemption because they were proposing that 48 of the total number of development on these two parcels was going to be affordable housing. And that was something they worked out at the Act 250 state level. So we were not involved in that at all. But also the ownership, who owns a piece of property, permits run with the land. They don't run with the ownership. So it's at that time, whether there was a application for Twin Pines or not, this still is a property that is currently owned by one entity, and how they choose to develop it is not within the purview of our criteria for site plan review as to who is the owner. The permitting runs with the property, so.
Even if the property is then purchased by a different entity?
Of course, yes, because things are purchased all the time. So whatever the permits are, the permits sit with the property, not with the entity that owns it.
Okay, I guess I'll follow up with the state because I'm not understanding that.
Yeah, you might want to do that because it's an Act 250 process there.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, and something you just said, I had a follow-up question. Oh, I know where Twin Pines offices are, and I know where this property is that's going to be developed, and I would find it hard to believe that you could see the apartment building from where your offices are down.
I know you and I have had the opportunity to sit across the table from each other in our conference room on the second floor, and you can absolutely see this site from the second floor.
I don't think I've been to your offices at Twin Pines.
I'm
no,
pretty sure.
Never.
Okay.
Trust me,
I
never.
I thought we had
never.
Okay, well, I stand corrected. Suffice it to say, we're on Holiday Drive, and Holiday Drive is right there. So if you're on the second floor of Holiday Drive, third floor, top of the building, you can see the site. So it is proximate. That's my point. It's nearby.
Madam Chair,
yes.
There was a question about the transfer of the property from a nonprofit to a for-profit. Can we see clarity around that question?
I thought you said it was perpetually.
Yeah, it's perpetually affordable. So the model in this country, and we can talk about whether it's the right model anytime. I'm happy to sit with folks and debate how we manage, develop and manage affordable housing. In this country, it is low-income housing tax credits, federal tax credits, that are the primary funding mechanism for affordable housing. Since 1986, when Congress passed a tax act during the Reagan administration, tax credits have been the primary source. So 95%, something like that, of all affordable housing that has been built since 1986 has been built utilizing tax credits. Tax credits are of no value to a nonprofit. They are of value to a for-profit. So what we do is we sell those tax credits. We compete for those tax credits. We sell those tax credits to an investor, and the investor, which typically is banks, so our local banks often participate in buying those tax credits. They get the tax benefit, but it requires that we have a for-profit entity as the owner. That said, we put into place, as part of the closing process, certain restrictions. So the state of Vermont, through the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, will have a restriction that says, okay, you may rent to this number of 30% folks, this number of 60% folks, this number of 80% folks. The Vermont Housing and Finance Agency, which administers the tax credit program, will also have a restrictive covenant. So those covenants restrict to whom and how we rent. They, because there is a requirement under state law that it be perpetually affordable, that's the hook. So tax credits, because of tax credits, we have to have a for-profit entity. But that for-profit entity will be controlled by Twin Pines and Evernorth as the general partners.
Thank you, Eric. Yes.
Gary Farnsworth again. Question. You said that's the hook. Who receives the grant money from the government between the companies?
So the structure is certain of the grants go directly to Twin Pines, and then Twin Pines loans them in or grants them into the project. And that way the grants are available to the project to pay for construction and architectural fees and legal fees and and acquisition fees and all the fees that comprise the project. So that's the typical way that we see the funds coming in through Twin Pines.
How does the landowner make their money? You said Blackwell owns the property?
So we will pay BlackRock for the land that they have acquired and permitted and made certain improvements to. So they've already done some improvements. If you've driven down Sykes Mountain Avenue, you've seen there's a detention pond, there's an access road entrance that's there as well. And so we'll pay an acquisition fee to them for the project that is based on an appraisal that we've received and been vetted by all the parties.
Will that be a lease or to buy?
That is fee simple to buy.
Thank you. Other questions, please?
Hi, my name is Julie Clemens. I am a Hartford resident, and I'm here to read a statement on behalf of another Hartford resident, Erin Brown, who lives at 747 Hartford Avenue, the Twin Pines building next to the Haven. She couldn't be here because of illness, but she wanted her story told. So everything I'm going to say after this is Erin Brown's words. In 2007, I held my 19-month-old child as he left this world. He was a normal baby in utero. However, after the sudden death of my baby brother, I suffered a complete placental abruption. This is where the mother, Erin, was hemorrhaging to death, and the baby is without oxygen completely. Though the prognosis was very bleak, I, as his mom, knew different. He did things they said he never would and was so much more than I ever expected. His life and death taught me so much. It did for a time lead me to want so desperately to numb the pain of his loss. His life was work. 13 out of the 19 months of his life were spent living in the hospital. We had a team of specialists that worked with us every week. When I lost him, I lost everyone that had been my support for so long. I'm not proud of how long it took me to pull myself together enough to even stay up all day or to make it an hour without crying. It's very important for you to understand how difficult it was for me to find the strength to want to live, to want to see another day. It's been 13 years now with the help of many mental health providers, many different trauma specialists, lots of meetings, rehab, Matt, my wonderful PCP, all my many friends and supporters that I've made it this far. A little over a year ago, I was blessed finally with a subsidized apartment. I can finally afford to live again, being a disabled adult single woman. The very first day I saw my apartment, I broke down in tears because it was so beautiful and everything I had been waiting for such a long time. Much to my dismay, this has been an absolute nightmare. To say it's affecting my everyday life is beyond an understatement. I'm back to waking up crying every day if I get to sleep at all. I have gone days at a time without sleep, completely sober, verifiable. There is so much drug activity that it's well known throughout this building. It's becoming harder and harder to remain sober. I fought so hard to get this far. In the first 2 months of living here, there were 3 fires all in the same unit. At that time, I was stuck in a wheelchair and got stuck on the 2nd floor, treated for smoke inhalation on the 2nd fire. That person has since been evicted. Over the last few months, there was an overdose resulting in death in the same unit. That has been my biggest complaint. A month later, there were 3 overdoses in the same unit, resulting in 2 deaths and 1 revived. A few years back, I was certified as a recovery coach. I've yet to utilize my certification. Given that I was finally in an apartment and stable, I had started seeking out employment. It gave me the idea that if Twin Pines' major issue is drugs, why not implement a recovery team that would work with Twin Pines tenants only and strictly by choice unless there are issues. I brought this idea to many different employees without response. I also brought up having AA and NA meetings in the building to deter that kind of activity. They expect me to do the work voluntarily. That was the extent of the support I was given. Most nights, we don't even have outside lighting. When we call after hours maintenance, they say there is nothing they can do. It wasn't until the last few weeks there has been any improvement whatsoever. Speaking as a current tenant, I'm afraid already living where I am. What's going to happen if you give them a grant to build yet another building when they can't control the ones they have? Thank you, Erin, a concerned tenant.
Thank you very much for sharing Erin's story. I obviously am precluded from discussing the situation with her about her tenancy. So I'm going to talk in general terms about what we're doing at the building and how we're trying to deal with it. I will tell you, it has been among the most frustrating experiences of my professional career, what has gone on. When we proceeded to develop this project, we very much were building on a model that has been successful across the river at Parkhurst property in Lebanon. We have not had this kind of issue there. And we did not expect, based on our experience, that we would have this kind of issue here. I guess, I was probably overly optimistic. There are those who are landlords in Vermont and New Hampshire who say they will not be landlords in Vermont because we make it really hard on landlords when there are problems to deal with them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've done and what we're going to do. And I'm going to ask some of the folks here who feel strongly about this issue to join me and help me in trying to deal with state law that needs to change around these issues. So we have evicted 3 residents with an additional 3 in process. 4 out of the 6 are drug related. We have additionally evicted 11 non-residents. Why would you say, why would we have to evict non-residents? Well, in Vermont, it becomes very easy for somebody to say, I am a resident there. I've been invited to stay in a unit. And so we are actively preventing people from claiming to be residents. We've issued 7 no trespass orders against non-residents. Unfortunately, we have not had the support that we need from law enforcement community or the courts, and we have struggled with that. We are not alone. This is a problem that landlords across Vermont are grappling with. Will, I know you've had some experience with these issues up in Chittenden County. And our peers in Windham County are also dealing with this, where we have drug activity at a property and it becomes very hard to evict somebody. We're actively doing it. We're working with the police department and the fire department where we can identify what is going on. But it is a challenging situation. So we are looking at legislative changes to address some of the challenges. There is a House bill, House 782, that I will be testifying for, and I would encourage those of you who care about this issue and care about landlords' ability to deal with these types of situations to join us in pushing 782. The bill proposes to allow the landlord of a dwelling unit to obtain a no trespass order, prohibiting the tenants, invitees, or licensees from entering the dwelling unit or the dwelling unit's common areas if the tenant consents to the order, or if the invitee or licensee subject to the order has violated the terms of the lease agreement. It's a lot of legalese. It's a tool to make it easier for landlords to prevent and bar people who should not be in the building from being in the building to the detriment of everybody there. But I want to look everybody in the eye here and say, we are taking this seriously. We are evicting people, and we have spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars evicting people. We did not expect this, and I'm sorry. So, thank you.
Let's just take.
She can go first.
Okay. Ashley?
I just wanted to ask Andrew, and I appreciate you acknowledging the problem. Of those 6 people, for example, that have been served eviction, have there been services provided? I've heard time and time again from tenants that there is no support services, there's no case management being offered. HCRS has availability in several of their different crisis management and case management programs, yet I'm not seeing that pipeline of tenant to treatment. So have any of those 6 people being evicted been provided case management services?
So I'm going to let Will talk about case management services. The Haven, so the arrangement with this is Twin Pines is the landlord. And we work with the Haven as our case manager. They have a dedicated case management staff who is responsible for working with households. So let me turn it over to Will.
Yeah, so we have.
Will, you want to identify?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Will Town, Upper Valley Haven. So there's what, 18 units, is that correct?
18
units, yeah. We have 2 dedicated case managers. That's their job, those 18 units. They're in the building every single day, business hours.
In the residency or in the Haven building?
They have office at the Haven and they go into the building every single day. But they also were not a substance use treatment provider or facility. And as you all are, I'm sure are aware, mental health and substance use treatment, unless it's court mandated, is voluntary. So we have connected people to substance use treatment. However, in Vermont, that can likely be a 2-week treatment, maybe 21 days if you're lucky. And then you're right back into where you originated and where you're being exposed to that issue. So it's a perpetual cycle. It's a huge, huge issue in the state where, especially those who are low income do not have the same access to treatment that somebody with significant means does have, right? Like if you're a wealthy person, you can pay for 6 months to a year of inpatient substance use treatment. But yeah, we have those services on site, and I will also share Andrew's sentiment that, you know, when I first started here, which was not that long ago, one of the first things I heard from our team was, you know, we need to try to figure this out.
I'm Infinity and I actually live in Lebanon, but I organize with tenants in Hartford, and I have a question. What steps are being taken before eviction? And also, I was organizing around the time that this project was taking place, and there was a lot of talk from Twin Pines about services that would be there in place for these addicts. I personally talked with several staff members and people at the Haven, and I said, I'm scared people are gonna die. And now people are dying, in case anybody was wondering. What steps are you taking to keep people from dying? What steps did you take from the beginning when people were asking you before these buildings were even built? And what are you doing prior to sticking addicts out on the street in the cold? And why is all this happening when Parkhurst wasn't a success? As a matter of fact, I was organizing around that and it wasn't a success. You knew there were issues there and you decided to take on a bigger project. And so I'm wondering how you can say you didn't understand this was gonna happen when you had tenants in your buildings looking at you in the face saying, we're scared people are gonna die.
Thank you.
So again, I mean, I think we need to have some significant advocacy at the systems level around what substance use treatment looks like in the state. Also, to Andrew's point, the ability for landlords to enforce leases for anything else other than non-payment of rent is really, really difficult. Nobody wants to see evictions happen, right? And it's this weird kind of I don't even know what the word is, but like we're having conversations as a housing support agency and as a nonprofit developer whose jobs are to support people to gain and maintain housing. And we're having it from the opposite side of the table almost of like, how do we get people out so that we can get some of these issues under control? And it's a really kind of a sad dynamic that we've fallen into because of some of the challenges. However, I will say, as alluded to earlier, the number, there are a lot of folks and the majority of folks that are doing well, and they are faced with challenges from a specific few people. And that is really heartbreaking because it does have an impact on everybody else living there. And we talk about tenants' rights, and evictions can be a tenant right issue, but it can also be a tenant right issue from everybody else in the building as well. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, do you have at the Haven or at Twin Pines any affected community on your boards or in your leadership that, for example, somebody who's in recovery themselves or somebody who's been unhoused? Because I think that they could fill in some of those blind spots that we're seeing. And I think part of this problem is because I sense that there's a lack of that perspective within the organization.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, we have that perspective all the time. We actively are seeking input from people that we serve. And I also just want to say this is not just a nonprofit problem. This is not just a nonprofit developer problem. As Andrew talked about, in Chittenden County, these issues have been going on for a long time. I know Decker Towers was alluded to. That was something that was, taking place a year plus ago. We were going to these meetings to trying to figure out a good solution to these issues. And some of the largest for-profit landlords were at the table, and they're all experiencing these same things. So this is not just a Twin Pines problem. This is not just a Haven problem. This is a symptom of kind of where we're at societally right now, and truly a drug crisis that we're experiencing.
So I'll just, if I can just add, so we do have a requirement. We are a community housing development organization. So we do have the requirement that a third of our board be residents or of folks from low-income communities. So we do have voices that I don't know if they're on the Zoom call this evening, but we do have voices at the table, and we, I will say we work hard to avoid evictions. If somebody needs a referral to treatment, we do that. We work with the state to make sure that their subsidy isn't lost if we're doing that. But it is, again, I've dealt with addiction in my family. I know exactly how hard it is. And I lost my best friend from law school to addiction. I know how hard it is. I was there the last 18 months of his life trying to do it. Addiction is terrible, and it takes a terrible toll in the community. And we do what we can to try to bring treatment to people, but at some level, they have to be there themselves and ready to accept it and to want to engage in it. And that's the frustrating thing. When you're saying goodbye to your best friend, and you're, you know, a 53-year-old man who's dying, it's terrible. And so I get it. I get it.
Hi, I'm Rob Ebert. I live over at Riverwalk. I tried to be on the Twin Pines board. I filled out the paperwork and I heard nothing. Their paperwork came to me 2 days before the election and my name wasn't on the board. I talked to, I believe it was David Crandall, who said he was losing a doctor that was being, he was on the board and he was going to be transferred. And this was at the Wilson Center across the street from 34 Prospect Street. And I was just taken off the election. No one ever got a hold of me. Just when I was told after the fact, after I asked about it, that they voted on the applications that were placed in, and that mine was just excluded. They had 5 names out of the 6 people that put in. Mine was just excluded. No reason was given. Andrew, I'd like to know why I was excluded from being on your board.
I don't know. I'm not on the nominating committee. We rely on the board to go through that process. As you said, as you noted, there were more applications than there were spots available. They looked at who was there, they looked at the information provided, and then they ultimately made a decision. So I'm sorry about that.
You can't attend it. There are 10 dinners that are given, and it seems to me to be a token board. Listen, I'm Rob Hebert, and I'm the one that keeps sending you the messages about living over there, and I hope you guys are reading them and receiving them. I just wanted you to put a face with those messages. I'll continue to send them. I wish you could ask me questions. There's just so much here. They can't take care of what they have. They can't take care of 48 units up there. There's just no way. They need to take their attention and devote it to the units that they have now. We have people being placed there that end up committing child rapes. We've had, I mean, I can go through the gauntlet. They're not Haven residents that are doing this. There's 4 Haven apartments over there, if my knowledge serves me correct. They're moving drug dealers in. They're known drug dealers. You can go on Facebook and see that they are. I would send, their management team is, they're non-existent. Twin Pines management team does nothing for us over there. Listen, I want you to have a meeting, and I want you to look into them and find out what I know. Because if you saw what I saw, there's no way you would approve another building. Thank you for your time. I'm available. I will always leave my address. You can get back to me and ask questions. Please do.
Thank you very much.
So I'm happy to address those issues, some of those issues.
Tim, you had a question earlier.
It's not really a question. It's more of a comment to everyone here. And I've been following this for a while, and I have kind of an interesting perspective perhaps, because I used to manage apartment buildings in White River. I have been involved with Haven and all the groups here. And I just want to really emphasize a couple concepts here. One concept is that, you know, we will be stronger on the other end if we embrace the concept that we're in this together. We have a lot of problems in this community, and I think to the extent we can understand that everybody comes here with good intentions to try and build a stronger community, let's start there. And the second thing I'm going to say is it's clear to me that Hartford, we're not a town anymore, we're kind of a city. And I think that we really need to take under serious consideration as the governing body and with our town staff, a new, we'll call it rental housing overlay that addresses some of these issues, that we do have better kind of management overlay and requirements for large scale housing in our town. Totally get it, see it, hear it. But I want us to just sort of start tonight with, and I understand there's a lot of emotion in the room and there's a lot going on in our community. But I think we have to, again, start it from a place that these guys, this guy, all of us are trying to do our best work. We're not, you know, I don't think anybody's evil in this room. I think everybody cares about each other. And so I really think that we should just try and sort of step back a little bit on that and say to each other that we're going to get to a better place. We have work to do, but let's try and do it in a way that's cordial and respectful.
Can I add something? Can I step back and add something? I
came and I was voted onto, I'm Rob again, I was voted on to the Homelessness and Housing Committee. Andrew had nothing on the agenda that night, yet he showed up to this meeting during that vote. I don't know why he didn't.
Please, no personal attacks.
It's not, wait, is that a personal
That's not
attack?
a personal attack. No, that's fact.
I felt
That's
like
fact.
he was trying to
And when
intimidate me.
you're
I want you guys to know that.
here, that's fact.
I'm sorry. This is a better, from what Tim just said.
I'm sorry, but I don't believe what Tim said. And this guy's from Norwich. He came to our meeting. He had nothing on his agenda. He came to intimidate me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that.
That's all I need to say.
I will,
You could have introduced yourself to me.
I could have, and but with all due respect, I am probably the most unintimidating person that you'll meet. And
Your stories before you say something.
We are not going to be able
No.
to continue.
Wait,
if
one more
this-
thing.
This is what we do.
Exactly.
Gary, 1 second.
Exactly.
Sorry. Before we have people make comments that have made comment, we do have some folks who have been waiting
Yes,
online.
yes.
I'm so sorry.
So,
No, that's fine.
and I do have some
I'm Gary
additional.
Farnsworth. I want
notes as
to
well.
agree 100% with Tim. It's going to take our community to fix this problem. Period. The issue is that I need to know is when the community is living around your buildings and they have issues, and even though you call the police and they complain to you, you are looking into it to resolve it. And as a community, we are the ones who need to work together to inform them as we do the police and whomever we can. And like you said, you lost a friend. I lost my son 20 years ago. Same thing, an addiction. And it's hard to go through. But we do have a problem here, but it does take all of us. Not just you, all of us. We all know that. But we need the help in the community to say, hey, look, you got a problem. You're building these places that are causing part of the problem. And that's it. Gary is done tonight.
we need to answer some people who've been online for a long time, so.
Sue Ellen, go ahead.
Hi
Yes,
there.
go ahead,
Sue Ellen Parmenter again. I am a business owner in Hartford and I'm a landlord and I'm a taxpayer. And I have kind of a vested interest in some of this from a business perspective, but also a personal perspective because I found the body of my son, who was 29 years old, about a half a mile from your Sykes Mountain Avenue building. So, and I happen to know that there's a lot of drugs going on back and forth with that building in Chambers Trailer Park, and that's a huge concern. But more so, I want to talk about Riverwalk tonight because Cornerstone Care has a contract with the VA through Optum to provide community support for these disabled veterans that you are saying that we need this extra housing for. And I want you to know, Mr. Winter, I've been waiting on a call from you since February of last year when I called to let you know, to let the person who represented you know, and who was supposed to give you the message, Samantha, I believe her name was, that my caregivers were no longer safe in your building. And that was Riverwalk. I also have employees that live at Riverwalk. I have an employee that I've had to put in hotel rooms and have other people take them in because she can't sleep in her apartment that she pays over $1,000 a month for because there is all sorts of things going on. And also, I would like to know who told the Hartford Police Department they weren't allowed to respond and go into Riverwalk. They will only go to the parking lot. So there's no community policing going on. I can't provide support to these disabled veterans and to help them without being able to provide my caregivers with some guarantee of safety. The other thing is I have provided videos of your tenants smoking meth and crack underneath the windows. It is very clear who these people are and what is going on, and nothing has been done time after time after time. Riverwalk is completely out of hand. And what you're talking about proposing, first of all, you need to hire a lot more people because you can't handle what you have. And there is zero response. they'll placate you and make you think like Samantha did to me, oh, well, I'm going to talk to Andrew and he'll get right back to you. And that call never happens. But you're proposing putting another set of apartments next to ground zero of the fentanyl crisis, which is Chambers Trailer Park. And I'm very concerned about this. And I would be 10 toes down against it unless you hire some people qualified to manage these buildings and return phone calls and who know the laws. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Mike Morris, go ahead.
Mike, go ahead.
Hello, good evening again. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Mike.
My question is about this other development is one that I think I had about 10 years ago on the other developments is that what does this development do for the town of Hartford as far as the grand list goes? Additional taxes we receive, additional costs that it creates in the town of Hartford, and other effects. I don't hear that. All I hear is, housing, and different price ranges that it's available for. But how is this beneficial for the town of Hartford? We're supposed to develop the town to grow. I don't hear that. So how much will this add to the grand list? What does it cost us? Is it a part of the TIF district? Things like that. Can anybody answer those things?
We're going to ask them.
Would you, so would you like
Yes.
me to answer that,
Yeah.
that question?
The-
So, yes, so although Twin Pines is a nonprofit, as we've discussed, we have for-profit entities which own the properties. They pay real estate taxes pursuant to a state statute that governs affordable housing. So, so a project like this 48 units would be expected to contribute approximately, I'm not going to guess, but would be a significant contributor to the tax rolls, just as everything else that we have built in town. And I will go back, just as the 194 market rate units up the hill that this is helping to facilitate will also contribute to the grand list.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that quick response. And so a quick response back is that property is in an area of development with retail space available that could generate millions of dollars. We've had dealerships in that area. What?
Mike? We're not going to carry on a dialogue at this point. This is a public hearing for comments. And we have other people in the room that are standing in line.
I thought we were allowed 2 minutes.
You wanted a question answered. We went through that.
Okay.
Okay.
You
So-
change the rule. Go ahead, Mary. Change the rules in English. I
No,
thought we
I'm
were
not
allowed 2
changing
minutes.
the rules, but there are other people
Mary.
here.
Thank you, Mary. Cut me short because you don't want to hear what I have
Terry
to
has
say.
30 seconds or 33 seconds on the clock.
You know, I'm sorry, Mary. You do a poor
Okay.
job, Chair.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, could we have someone else who hasn't had a chance to talk?
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Boleski, Hartford White River Junction resident. I just an FYI, I did email Twin Pines in 2022 before Hartford Avenue was built, asking them about safety plans. I asked the town, I asked the police. I got no response. So just FYI, I have the emails. So I sent you guys an email today. I'm writing to urge the select board to require nonprofit housing developers, specifically Twin Pines, to establish and share comprehensive safety plans with Hartford residents and property occupants. This request stems from serious concerns regarding criminal activity, substance use, and poor maintenance at existing properties, particularly 767 Hartford Avenue and 34 Prospect Street. While Twin Pines is effective, and I would say amazing, at property acquisition, raising funds, marketing, and making connections with state politicians. Their property management requires significant improvement to ensure all tenants are treated with dignity and respect. Furthermore, I advocate for the reinstatement of impact fees on developers to offset increased municipal service costs. I also suggest that the planning department strictly adhere to all project approval requirements, including safety and data studies when reviewing applications. Ultimately, I am calling for a pause on new developments and a pause on approving further grants after thoroughly re-examining the safety of the current properties. It is essential to hold organizations like Twin Pines accountable for safety and quality of life within their buildings. I also have compiled following data regarding Twin Pines property. At 34 Prospect Street, there were 207 police reports since opening in 2025. 207 police reports. In 2025, the Hartford Fire Department responded to 20 incidents, with an additional 5 incidents in January of 2026 alone. 767 Hartford Avenue had 52 police reports since it opened in 2025, and Hartford Fire Department responded to 44 incidents, with an additional 6 calls in January of 2026. While I have identified the number of police reports, obtaining individual copies at 25 each is financially prohibitive for me. However, the select board and the planning department can get that data. And I would request that they use that in going through these application processes. So I have been requesting, like I stated, that Twin Pines provide safety plans to the town since 2022. Most recently, I advocated for safety plans for both Twin Pines and the Haven while working with the Hartford Police Outreach Committee. Unfortunately, the policy committee, which I was sitting on and working on that, was disbanded by the Hartford Police. I attached the data to your email that I sent you. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
I know I asked a question before, but I prepared a statement before I even came. I only asked that question for clarification. Can I still give my statement, please?
Yes.
And before I start,
But can you keep it to the 2 minutes?
I can probably keep it to the 2 minutes, but before I start, I want to say that there is a difference between a personal attack and factual information. I see that you don't currently have your Twin Pines water bottle with you, but I'm not entirely sure your
No,
objective.
I think that's really rude.
I'm not entirely sure
I'm
your
sorry.
objective in
I'm
this
sorry.
moment, and so I think that maybe take a moment. Okay.
Excuse me, I'm gonna clarify something. When I went to a block party, even before I came on this board, Twin Pines had a table set up. I got a water bottle. I think it's really rude. I'm sorry. I think it's really rude to accuse me of something because I got a free water bottle.
I think it was really rude to shut down somebody who was speaking about their personal experience and
Well,
calling it an attack.
How many times have you been rude?
Okay.
This is,
Why don't
Okay.
you make,
I would like to
can we
reclaim my time.
just do
Yep.
the statement?
My time. All right. Tenants have suffered for years with serious unresolved issues, unsafe and unmaintained properties, harassment and retaliation when people speak up, exploitation for unpaid labor, sexual harassment and abuse, and a constant refusal for this, a consistent refusal to take safety issues seriously. All at the hands of staff in an organization whose mission it is supposed to be helping people. These conditions did not appear overnight. They grew, compounded, and normalized because no one in power stopped them. Many tenants stay silent because complaining is dangerous. When tenants did come together and organize, Twin Pines actively interfered. Staff denied access to common spaces, removed flyers and notices, dismantled bulletin boards, monitors meetings, and even tried to start an alternative tenant union. These actions violate HUD regulations. I have the emails, Andrew. They also violate tenant rights. They were deliberate, and for years, tenants have asked for oversight and intervention, and nothing meaningful has changed. If I recounted every serious issue that I came across while organizing with tenants, we would be here all night. But it is clear that these issues stem from negligence and deliberate actions by Andrew Winter, the executive director. Years of efforts to silence tenants have caused real harm to thousands of vulnerable community members. One such incident, in 2021, at Andrew Winter's request, a resident manager at Crafts Hill was appointed to the board. Now, the problem is that is illegal for several reasons. It was done to circumvent HUD regulations of that Andrew talked about earlier, tenant representation on the board. He was proposed as a tenant. He wasn't, he was an employee, and the bylaws specifically state that employees cannot serve on the board. This employee was also illegally counted as a non-employee instead as an independent contractor. This is tax fraud. All of this was deliberately done to circumvent HUD regulations and to keep tenants from rightfully serving on the Twin Pines board. Just one more moment. After this incident, Andrew personally reached out to people in my life, personally retaliated against me in my professional and personal life, took time out of his day to reach out to the co-op board and other people in my life to invalidate what I had to say. And then he did it again when he showed up at that meeting that Rob was talking about. That was intimidation. Andrew is willing to break the law. Andrew is willing to intimidate tenants. He's willing to actively retaliate against tenants. This is not acceptable from the executive director, and it brings into question whether or not he really is capable of being the executive director of an organization that takes care of so many vulnerable tenants. Thousands of vulnerable people are suffering abuses, and now they're currently in an abusive relationship with Twin Pines because there are no alternatives for affordable housing for people like me and other people in this room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there are a bunch of people who would like to be here today, but worried about some of this. They were not willing to come. So I'm going to share 10 letters from folks. Before I do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about a resident survey. So we work hard to try to make sure that we're getting resident opinion as to how we're doing and what we do. The bottom line number: would you recommend Twin Pines to friends and family? 94%. You're right. It's not 100%. I would love to be at 100%. I would love to be perfect. It helps us figure out what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. So I give you that piece of information. There are lots of people who are happy to be Twin Pines tenants. And I'm going to share with you, since we don't have them here today, the information has been redacted. They're concerned about their safety and about being bullied and harassed on social media. So I'm going to share. One writes, living here has been a positive and reassuring experience, and I would highly recommend Twin Pines to anyone looking for a well-managed and supportive housing community. Another who is at Riverwalk. Some staff went above and beyond their duty to accommodate and address issues. Together, they have helped reduce noise issues, maintain order and cleanliness within the building, and sustain the dignity and resources of the community. Another writes, I love it here. All the administrative staff as well as maintenance staff are always polite, helpful, and friendly. The heat is warm in the winter and the AC cool in the summer. It is a one in a million apartment with affordable rent. That is a resident of Riverwalk. Lastly, another writes, I've seen property managers de-escalate a lot of different arguments within tenants that live in the property and helping to make sure both are heard. That is what I want to hear. That is how I encourage my staff to proceed. And again, I am sorry that those folks can't be here today, but I wanted you to have their letters. Thank you.
Andrew.
Hi, Mary. I'm not going to take up to 2 minutes. Heidi Due to White River Junction, Vermont. I really wasn't going to get up to speak, but it was brought to my attention yesterday, I believe, and then again today that some tenants over at Riverwalk have been getting their doors knocked upon by staff from Twin Pines, and they've been actually harassed to give positive statements for Twin Pines, and they just don't want to get involved. They're not happy with the situations. I'm not gonna go into details. I'm not gonna give you names because I'm afraid that they're gonna get evicted. They're not into substances. They don't have mental issues. They just want a place to live. I also am aware that I run the Facebook group, What's Happening Hartford, Vermont, to give out information, what's going on in town, different events, different this, that, and everything else. I have some of Andrew's employees that are like hounding me, wanting to friend me on Facebook, demanding that I let them in. Why am I not letting them in? It's because they're disruptive. Why are they so demanding? It's because they want control of our town. I'm sorry, people that need affordable housing, yes, they need affordable housing. They need a roof over their head. Now, I went to all the planning and zoning meetings around Black Rock, and all the permits, but we never, ever heard that this project was going to be a twofold. We never, ever heard that Twin Pines or anyone was going to have one building here and another building there. This was never discussed. This should have been disclosed to the public from the first mention of the permit. I'm sorry. This should have been disclosed to the public. Affordable housing is needed, but this is not the proper entity to do so. So keep that in mind. Thank you. I'm sorry. I went over.
Yes.
Andrew, could you tell me the name of the bill you're gonna testify on that might be easier?
Yeah, it's
To address some of these issues.
It's House 782, Representative Goodnow, out of Brattleboro.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ready? Marie Elbid, White River, Hartford Avenue there. What I see the problem here is that you're not really screening your guests properly. I mean, there's a lot of low-income people, poor people, but you are letting problem people in these buildings. And the drug addicts don't belong with people in recovery. I don't know why you think that's gonna work. Why does anybody think that's gonna work? I think anybody who has lost somebody will tell you they're not gonna make it if they're living next door to somebody who's doing drugs. I mean, it's really pretty bad. You're the one screening your clients. And the same with the Haven. That was a drug-free facility and it should be a drug-free facility. And don't say it isn't, like Michael Redmond did, because I know. I have people telling me. One mother in Claremont said, oh, she was all worried about her daughter trying to kick her out of her house in Claremont. And I said, sounds like a drug problem. She says, oh yeah, the police took her up to the Haven. So you're trying to run some kind of rehab facility up there. And where are the mothers going who aren't addicted, who need help? Or the dads who have children? Where are they going? Or in recovery? Just throw them in here and expect these people who need help to just figure it all out on their own and have to deal with these drug addicts taking over their damn place. There's no supervision, no cameras, no management, and you can't expect it to work. It's just asinine that you do. Just like putting a bunch of, I don't know what analogy is, but I don't understand it. How do you think anybody in recovery is going to survive when you're allowing drug addicts in your buildings?
Thank you, Ray.
Sue Ellen, go ahead. Did she have her hand up and then put it down? She might have stepped away.
Hi, Sue Ellen Parmenter again. I just wanted to validate some of what I believe her name was Mary and Miss Duto had to say tonight, because I have firsthand knowledge. I don't know if Andrew was aware, but I can state as a fact, and I don't know who charged him to do it, and I don't know if he's aware, but his people in his offices have been busier than Jerry Lewis telethon phone answerers since last week, calling people repetitively,
asking them for letters, asking them why they're refusing to write a letter for them, and then calling them additional times and asking why they're refusing. That is unacceptable. That is bullying, and that is making your tenants feel like if they don't speak for you, they're going to be evicted.
Let me assure the select board, the failure to write a letter is not a basis for an eviction, period.
You want to explain the actions though?
No, we're not going into a dialogue here. I'm sorry.
Can
Yeah, go ahead.
I just make a suggestion here? The reality, if we want to focus on the agenda, is the consideration of this. And I appreciate the information around this consideration. But I also think that we might benefit, honestly, as a select board to schedule in the near future a specific community meeting around some of these challenges and topics. Because I think what's happening here a little bit is, number one, it's almost 8 o'clock at night, and I'm sure confident many people are tired here. And number two is, I just don't think it's an effective venue and design, if you will, to really address these issues and hopefully, get some progress to improve things. And I'm not trying to cut anyone off tonight. All I'm trying to do is suggest that on our agenda is the consideration of this grant for this particular project. Now, I understand that it's valid to discuss the person presenting that and go through that, but I think we're veering a little bit off course here in the sense that this stuff should really be kind of redirected to a dynamic and productive meeting specific to this topic. So that's just my suggestion to the chair, and
I don't have control over making a decision about another meeting. And actually, this agenda item is on the grant public hearing for affordable housing. So, Miranda?
So I just want, I have a question and then wanted to make a comment off of what Jen just said. I guess with hearing these concerns about residents being asked to write letters, Andrew, could you address that? Have staff asked residents to write letters of support for this grant or to just testify in general? Or was it specifically for letters of support?
We were encouraged at the last meeting to do outreach to residents, and so we did.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know if it was specifically around letters of support or it was just make public comment or like.
Yeah, no, it was letters of support or feel free to attend. And again, I think there was reticence. I had somebody this morning who called up property management, a resident at Riverwalk said, yeah, no, I'm not coming. I don't feel like it would be a supportive environment. We want it to be a supportive environment for everyone. And I want to hear when things are going well, and I want to hear when things are not going well. But specific to your question, at the last select board meeting when we were talking about it, the suggestion was made. And so that's why we did outreach. So thank you for clarifying that.
And then just, Tim, I'm gonna push back a little bit in like a very kind way. And just that I think that like the concerns brought here today that we've heard so far have been because Twin Pines is a really unique organization, and in allowing them to continue developing in our community, they also then manage those properties. So I know that some of these issues are very specific to people, but I think it speaks to the larger like property management. But I do think that you're right, and I wonder if after the hearing is done, I know you have another comment, sorry, that maybe the solution is some sort of task force on creating like reporting. I know that Twin Pines has their strategic plan. So potentially there's like an opportunity for you guys to give up, since you're already going to be collecting this data, to report that back to the board as part of like our agreement to apply for the grant, and doing that in conjunction with select board members and residents. So I just an idea.
So let me briefly comment. I love what you just said. And what I'm getting at is where does this sit, right?
Yeah.
So like if we're gonna do some type of new overlay to oversee this and improve it, it doesn't sit here, right? It's too late because the project's already kind of down the pipeline. So the challenge for me is like sitting here saying, how do we cure this? How do we fix this? And the way we fix it is probably to go back a little bit and improve the process prior to even coming in front of us. So the idea would be like, you know, when I was on planning commission in Heartland, Act 250 hearings were very stringent and they were good. And anybody that hates Act 250, you're making a mistake, because Act 250 is awesome because it's prevented a lot of like really horrible developments from happening. And the reason why is because it has 10 criteria, and you as a community have the discretion to review a project and go over all of what we just talked about tonight. So the problem I think we've run into is I think we're missing some criteria that when big scalable projects like this come in front of this town, they get those checkpoints, and we need to improve that process. So thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ashley?
Yeah, on that note though, there's nothing, correct me if I'm wrong, stopping us from putting some sort of, you know, requirement or, you know, some sort of reassurance on the grant approval. Like, for example, we could ask that safety plans are developed and detailed out for this project and all future projects if we wanted to make it at a systemic level, which I totally support for every developer to provide. You know, if serving a vulnerable or affected community, what are your safety plans? Who are your partners? How are you going to deliver the support services that we assume nonprofit housing partners support more so than
Is the select board the proper entity to oversee landlord-tenant disputes? I don't know that that's the case.
Well, I think
And then,
that this
and then
is
to
related.
treat one nonprofit agency different from other nonprofit agencies also strikes me as maybe somewhat unfair to one agency who's on the hot seat tonight with a request, because maybe the board, if they want to have nonprofits report to them, should be more comprehensive in reaching out to all nonprofits who do work in this field. I mean, I just get worried that since we were dealing with a particular issue tonight of 444 Sykes Mountain Avenue, that the board might be tempted to do a little overreach in sympathy to people who are expressing real concerns. But nevertheless, we lose focus on what's before us on the agenda.
I'd like to, I was in the middle of talking.
Oh, I am sorry for the interruption then. I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
that's okay. I'm just gonna push back on that, John, because it is on our purview because we have to vote on it, right? This board has to decide if we want to apply for taxpayer dollars and give it to this nonprofit organization. And I think that we're well within our right to have some requirements attached to that. And as I said, I think that's something that we should do for all organizations coming to the board, requesting that we are, you know, going to apply for funds on their behalf. So I'm not trying to be, you know, sorry that Twin Pines is the first to come before this sitting board in this kind of scenario. But I also, to that piece about what is the select board's role in this, want to remind folks about when Chief Kelley sat in the seat over there and told us that we're experiencing increased public safety demand because specifically, and she named, I'm sure she may regret this, 3 Twin Pines buildings that were new large developments. So that data seems to match resident and tenant data. And I think that we're kind of compelled to act in some behalf or in some way. And this seems like an opportunity to work with Twin Pines to come up with hopefully some resolutions to limit these problems in the next property.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just from a process perspective, does it make sense to continue the public hearing and then draw that to a close and then let the board deliberate?
I think we should draw it to a close. I just would like to only hear from people who haven't had a chance to speak.
Oh, thank you.
Michelle? You don't
Tim,
have to say your name.
Michelle Boleski, White River Junction. So Tim, we had like all sorts of community meetings way back when they first proposed the low barrier shelter and the Twin Pines property on, and nothing came of it. And I asked way back then, where are the safety plans? You know, how, you know, are the police going to monitor? What does it look like? No one ever answered me. I asked for data just to see what was going on already around Hartford Avenue, because there was so much stuff happening. And the police department and the town told me they would charge me $1,200 for that, and that the planning commission had to ask for that, and they never did. So, you know, this is something that I've been talking about for 5 years to deaf ears. And now, you know, it's just frustrating because we could have been proactive and we could have created solutions and properties that were the model of the state of Vermont if everyone worked together. But the people that were putting the project together and pushing it through didn't want to talk to the community. And, you know, I have emails I can show you, they were never answered. And so it's very frustrating. I went to the project outreach. I saw maybe 1 or 2 select board members at those meetings. Guess what? No community members are going anymore. No one is going anymore because nothing has happened. So, you know, to say, let's do another big thing and bring all the community, you know, it seems frustrating. So I just want to share that. And I'm still trying. I still write emails. I still probably annoy you guys. And I sometimes get nasty, and I apologize for that. It's not my intention. But, you know, it's frustrating. And then hearing about people suffering in those buildings. Because, you know, I was a single mom. I lived in low income housing. And it was not, that was 30 years ago. And nothing's changed.
John Hafner, White River Junction. I just wanted to echo support for Ashley's comments. I think that the decision that the board makes tonight is a difficult decision, obviously. And I think weighing the concerns that have been raised tonight and understanding the kind of leverage that the town can play if this grant is pursued would be, I think, incredibly important. I would also echo support that others made earlier tonight about re-implementing impact fees. I think that this is one of the things that we need to consider as a town for how we expect developers to support the ongoing efforts that the town needs to invest into those developments. So just, I think, and then beyond that is just a question about, you know, one of the entities that is not here is BlackRock, and they are the current owner of the parcel. And so I think that there are questions for them about how does this proceed without this funding source? By basically, I guess, deferring action on this funding source, do they then have an opportunity to do something else with the parcel? And do we know what that is? And I just want us to be, I think, as conscious as we can be about what the current owner of the parcel intends to do with it. In relation to Ashley's point about, does this opportunity actually give us an ability to flex some leverage as a town versus if it's just a private entity deciding what they want to do with it? It's just a question I have, I think, in terms of how this process plays out. Thanks.
Okay, I'd like to close this portion of the public hearing. And last comments from the board before we move on to the next agenda. Derek?
Yes, question on the process. So there is a notice period for the public hearing, right? 15 days or something like that. It has to be warned ahead of time. We've conducted that, we just closed it, right? If the board, because it seems like we've received a lot of information tonight. I don't like making decisions under duress. And I feel like we've started some conversations that need to continue. And so one of the considerations that I want to explore is tabling the motion to approve, with the understanding that if the public hearing doesn't have to be repeated, we come back in 2 weeks and make a decision. Does that still allow for the applicant to complete the application in a timely fashion? I think it was March 2nd. Yeah, thank you. So just I just want to explore that, because rushing into making a decision, yay or nay, feels a little difficult right now. And I think we should we owe it to ourselves and to the town to give ourselves time if we have time.
Lori and I had discussed that possibility earlier today, and I think that that would work in terms of your deadlines.
Right, so the point I just want to clarify is if you want to have the opportunity to continue hearing from the public, you would need to continue the public hearing, and then we would not have to rewarn it for the 15 days. And that's one option, but you need to understand that if you close the public hearing today, we would not be able to warn it in time to be able to have another public hearing in time for the application to go forward. So if you feel that there's any need for you to have more public comment, then you'd want to continue the public hearing. And then then the action does not have to take place tonight on the application. It can, but you can then postpone that action item to your 17th meeting. What is a requirement is that 5 days, and you have to count it like really 6 days, because it can't be the day you made the decision, but there has to, so you have to at least have, is it business days or consecutive days? I think it's consecutive days, right?
I believe so, but
But from the time that you make the decision, if it is a yes, to be able to submit the application, and that would enable you to do that if you wanted to continue this to the 17th. But the one thing that is a little bit tricky is that if you anticipate wanting to maintain public comment opportunity, you'd have to continue the hearing, or you may decide that you've received all the public comment you feel is necessary, and then you would go into a decision-making process.
I think I need input from the rest of the board. Miranda?
I guess a clarifying question, are you suggesting that we table the board deliberation on this tonight? I am okay, I think, if we don't vote on it tonight, but I think I would like the board to start talking about where we are and what we're thinking as far as the draft.
I think while these matters done, while this is fresh in our mind, it would not hurt to continue the discussion, perhaps after a brief break. But I wanted to explore the opportunity to defer the motion, the action, not necessarily a public hearing. It feels like we've heard a considerable amount of public comment. I'm not sure if we will hear anything new. I'm not opposed to suspending the public hearing and then resuming it, but my initial thought was not to rush into the motion. That's really.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. So I think I agree with what Eric's saying. I mean, I think you just close the public hearing. We've heard a lot of public comment tonight, very impassioned. We have a good sense of what the issues are. I think it's been raised. So I don't know if the board needs more public comment to sort of, get the information that came in. But if we did postpone or table the actual motion for approval of the grant application to the next meeting.
So that's 5B.
Yeah, it seems like that would be okay. If we made the decision that night, there would be enough time. If we approve allowing the application to be made, there will be enough time to get the application in a timely fashion. And then we don't have to, like Eric said, I think, so much has come up and people have brought up things about safety plans, stuff like, I would not be comfortable voting on this tonight. I think it needs a little more info. So if we can table it to the 17th without doing any damage to the ability to submit the application and to make sure it's properly warned and everything, then I think that would be that's what I would do, is close the public meeting. Let's postpone the actual vote on this until February 17th.
Okay. Ashley?
And I was just wondering if by the 17th, sometime between now and then, we would get the updated application. Because it sounds like what we have in our agenda packets is outdated and doesn't have all the accurate information.
It's a pre-application, right?
Yeah, so I guess how does it work? Do we get that app if we approve it and then they apply, then we get it, or do we get to review the application?
Lauren,
So we're
some
trying to
questions.
figure out some technical issues here because there's like, it's a state system and you have to do it the way they want it. So that's a question why we're looking at each other to kind
No,
of say,
I think you can do that. it may be in a draft form, but it can be updated to what it's consistent with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you can do something. It just doesn't, you just print out it as a draft.
Okay.
And the main thing on that was just making sure the number of units and what's subsidized and what's not, just so that there's no question down the road or the public says, oh, we thought that it was this many units. Yeah.
Right, the pre-application is closed, but you could start the actual application in the draft form.
Yes.
So.
Thanks.
Yes.
So, and also I want to also do a point of clarification. Did we actually formally close the public hearing?
No, you didn't, you made a motion, but nothing was it voted on, the motion? I
No,
don't
it
think
wasn't
so.
voted on.
You
I
do
said
need
we
to
were
do
going
that.
to close the open hearing, the
Do we
public
need
hearing.
to make a motion?
You do
Yes.
need to do that.
Yes.
officially.
And I, just a point of clarification, I'm just hearing from folks at Evernorth, they will be able to get us the full application, the draft full application next week.
Right.
So.
Yes, Mike?
You ready for a motion?
Yes.
I move that the select board close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Second by Ashley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. And so we'll open as the select board and we're gonna take a break, but I wanted to make sure, do we need a motion to table 5B until the 17th, right? Is that it?
We do, but we want
Are we
to.
still discussing it though? Cause this just says, right, consider, so can we still have a discussion about it?
Yes.
And then, okay.
So we're going to take a break right now, so that
Then
everybody has a
consider,
chance.
then table.
And it'll, we should come back in about 5 or 6 minutes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Oh,
Lori should be here any second. She said to please not start with that.
Right,
Sorry, Laura.
there she is.
We're moving on. Okay.
My apologies, board.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, for planners purposes, Mike needs to leave. Okay, and so we are back in select board session, and John has a comment.
A quick announcement. Just for anybody who's waiting on the walkability discussion, that's going to be punted. Our host who did the study is no longer available. She'll try another time.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we are on 5B, right? Okay, so. Tim?
Yeah, I think, I want to touch a little bit on what John and Ashley both said, and I appreciate what Ashley said. And I don't have the answer here, but there was some suggestion that, and Laura, you may be able to speak to this because you've been here longer than I have for sure, but has it ever happened where there was some type of stipulation or requirement appended to something of this nature? I think it would be kind of tricky for us as a select board to say, well, we'll approve this if, this overlay is there. And I don't know if I'm being clear there, but the idea would be like, okay, we like the idea, but having heard what we heard, and I don't even know what that would look like, right? But it just seems a little bit new to me of how we would even do that, right? We would say, like, we like this project, but it sounds like it needs more aggressive management overlay, or like, how do we even do that?
So, couple things. I don't know the exact answer to that, but if you are going to continue this on the 17th, it certainly is information I can bring to you. And I can contact the state and find out if there are any other examples of this. I don't know if Andrew has ever had that come up in a project that they've worked on in some place, but I certainly can get that information to you for consideration.
And just a brief follow-up to that. My vision here would be that we back this up, right? Like, we ultimately, it's showing up, with you guys upon review of any project. And I want to be consistent here. This is no pick on Twin Pines thing or whatever. It's more like, it strikes me that we should be putting something in place that when projects come up of this nature, we should be putting like a little checkbox there that says, hey, do we think we have a pretty good, property management overlay or something of that nature? And I'm sure other towns must do it. I did definitely see something like this, like when I was in Amherst, Mass, where it was sort of a, we'll call it a landlord tenant, management overlay system of some sort. So I just want to make that a point of order, that if we could kind of reflect on this and say, is there any way we could kind of back this up and get it back off the select board and back in the, consideration of a project in your office? That would be awesome.
This is just for nonprofits.
I don't think it should be applied just to nonprofits. I think it should be applied to any project of scale that may have an impact in the community that should have certain characteristics and overlays.
Can I just point out one thing that I mentioned off camera earlier, which is that generally when you're dealing with congregate housing, the two town staff that are first to come to mind with a role in regulation and enforcement are the health officer and the fire marshal. The health officer for obvious health and safety issues, but also for the fire marshal for life safety issues as well. And of course, police and fire as needed, but just want to make that point.
And I was talking to John at the break for just a second, and BPR had a program on the other day, and it dealt with encampments and shelters, and it was the health officer and the deputy fire marshal who, went around and worked, and they really focused on the safety issue for all of the individuals. They also talked about a lot of issues that are a little bit different. They talked about how some people want to be in an encampment because then there aren't any rules they can do what they want to. And they also, what was also different was that they said that they had 60 to 80 people in shelters right now, and they mentioned the different shelters, and they said other homeless individuals they're putting up in hotels. So, and then there are rules, and different hotels have different rules that they have to follow by, and it looks like you're shaking your head, you know about this already, so. It's just not Hartford, it's just not Hartford, it's all over, so. And as you have said, which I wasn't aware of, the difficulties with some of the rules and regulations in our state. So Miranda, you had your hand up.
Thinking for, Tony mentioned like if we did some type of addendum of like, yes, we'll approve this on the grounds that you will complete X, Y, Z. I'm wondering if this is any different from like a grant report. Like I'm not expecting like us to say, okay, well, we'll approve this in Twin Pines, you're gonna do X, Y, and Z, we're gonna like lay out guidelines, but maybe that it's something along the lines of like, when folks are coming to us to apply for grants through the town, we expect some type of reporting, because if they come to us again, then we have something to kind of measure up to, just like for comparison's sake. So I just wonder if maybe it's like a grant report, if that would be something that was, has been done before, or, yeah.
I'm not sure I quite understand it. Are you saying prior to making an application, or as a part of it following the receipt of it, then coming back and reporting out?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Eric?
Yeah, I think I was thinking along the similar lines as Miranda. And I appreciate that, we don't want to single out any organization. We can't do that. But the counterpoint to that is there aren't many applicants that look like Twin Pines or that are doing that. So in trying to come up with some sort of uniform, like in the next 2 weeks, to come up with some policy that can be applied universally seems too broad or too large an undertaking. From my perspective, I see this as laying the groundwork for future boards, or providing future boards with information so that they can make good decisions about the next time this comes up, right? We are where we are. Ideally, this would have happened, at some point in the past, but someday there'll be another board and perhaps another project, and understanding whether, for example, whether the organization is what their outcomes are relative to their own defined metrics and measures that they have in their strategic plan, for example, does not seem to me to be too heavy of a burden. I don't really understand safety plans, so I'm open to understanding more about that, but that's an area where I'm just not sure what that looks like. But so I guess I don't view this as being punitive, although, I'm sitting on the side of the table. But I want to make sure that future boards have information to make decisions.
Thank
you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm going to go a little bit back more to the emotional place. I mean, I appreciate the direction we've gone to in terms of practical steps forward. I just want to speak for a second just about how it's truly heartbreaking that this is where we're at as a society, that so many people are struggling with addiction. There's insane income inequality that leads to a lot of people just struggling with their lives in general. And it's challenging to hear that we create housing, we have an organization that has tools and resources to patch it together to do that. And some folks are in that housing and continue to really struggle, whether they're using drugs or having to have neighbors who are doing so and disrupting the environment. And I just feel for everyone involved. And
I guess I do have a question, like curiosity of like, if, based on the discussion, what you all know so well, I know this is not the first evening that you've heard, this whole range of concerns and, you know, and from your point of view that you are well aware that there's been challenges in the building. We know the problem's bigger than Twin Pines. It's bigger than Hartford. It's bigger than Vermont. It's something that's happening at a very large scale, and it affects our small scale and our community in a really significant way. Do you have thoughts or input? I mean, the service providers in the room around like what could help, not, you know, create a situation like 747. Like I know we can't have all the answers because there just are drugs in the community, and there are people who are, you know, dealing with other problems that are gonna, you know, also need a place to live. I mean, I want there to be units for low-income veterans and other folks that need it. Like I do want that, and I don't know how to evaluate just giving that person a home, and then that home is potentially unsafe because of problems that are outside of our control. Like, what is that? You know, I can't, as an individual, like balance that trade-off, but it's there is a trade-off. So I guess my question is just like, where do you see, are there opportunities for guardrails or like, or advocacy? I mean, you gave us one advocacy opportunity, but I'm also curious about advocacy around like, yeah, the supportive services that are also very much in, you know, short supply, short demand. I mean, I know VA will be involved with those particular tenants, but they won't be able to be involved with the building as a whole. Yeah, I just would love to learn more about like how we can support the network through an agreement or through something that can try to prevent the crisis level that we're experiencing at one location.
Right. Am I okay to answer questions?
Sure.
Okay. I'm conscious of the fact that not everybody else is here. You know, I think there are services that we provide to all our residents. So we, in addition to the services that the Haven is providing, and you know, well, it looks like Will's making his way to the microphone and will undoubtedly supplement what I say in a probably more meaningful way. We do have resident supportive services staff that we raise philanthropic dollars to pay for. It's a staff of, I want to say 5 folks, 6 folks, across a portfolio of nearly 700 units. And different folks have different needs. We find that about somewhere between 60 and 70% of residents are interacting with resident supportive services. And so that's something that would be available to this building in addition to the more intensive services that are being provided by the VA for the 6 households that they're serving. And that's something that, you know, again, we're out there making sure that we have as part of every project that we do. It's something that we're committed to doing. So I'll defer to Will on other.
Yeah, I mean, there is no simple answer, as you said, right? And I think, I mean.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry,
Could
Will
you
Town,
introduce
Upper Valley Haven. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
I
forget too.
Yeah. And you had mentioned also like the motel program. So that is a hot button topic in the state house as we speak. And this is something that, you know, the state overall has identified as like, this isn't the solution, right? Like putting people that are experiencing homelessness into a motel where it's hard to get services, right? Like we have one service coordinator at the Haven that serves folks that are in the motels. Her caseload's over 100 people. That's, I mean, what can you do with that, right? So it's really hard. What we really need is a more diverse set of resources, right? Like more diversity in housing. You know, folks at Twin Pines, they're developing what they can, but you know, they're not the right people to be standing up recovery housing, for instance, right? Like we have that expertise in the state, but it's something that is woefully underfunded and under-resourced. And there's a real lack of those available programs. And that's something that there has been a lot of advocacy at the State House about that as well. But my concern really is around how, like, the problems of homelessness are not going to get better in the next year. If the state is going to shift the system, which it seems like it is, around the motels, and it already kind of has pulled back a little bit, for better or worse, and there's a 1,100 room cap, for instance, and we know there's multiple thousands of people experiencing homelessness. We're just going to continue to see this happen. And coming from the Burlington area, I can say coming here has been a little bit of a breath of fresh air, in the sense where the problems that we're facing are not quite as visible, right? Like, it's not to the same scale. And I think is great that we're having these conversations. And I've been impressed with Andrew and the team for being at the table with some concerned parties around 747 and having these conversations before it gets to that point. And we are still at a place where we can regain some of that control, but diversity of resources, right? Like, we need to have a lower barrier shelter, because that's the last resort for people. Otherwise, it will be visible. They will be on the street. We will be seeing them. And we need that opportunity to connect to resources. But, to some of the other folks' points that were here, there needs to be other shelters that are not lower barrier, that are drug-free places, so that people can make progress in recovery. And then we need to be able to transition into apartments and permanent housing. And if they need recovery housing after treatment, that's available as well. So it's not a simple answer. It's a very expensive answer. It's something that you have to play out over years. Even if we wrote a blank check to all the developers and said, build all the necessary housing, that would not fix it overnight, right? So, these are great steps in addressing that. And it is proactive solution making, but yeah, we need diversity of resources. That's my best answer.
Ashley?
Thanks. Yeah, I just, to that point, and remind me your first name again? Will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really agree with you about coming from Burlington is probably a breath of fresh air, because the problems aren't as visible. And some other folks brought up the issue today of the large, I forget the name of it.
Decker Tower.
Towers. And my concern as a board member and as a resident is that we're at a unique opportunity in Hartford right now to make it so that we don't end up in that really big, really visible, really out of control problem. But I really do feel that that's exactly where we're headed if we don't change the property management strategies that are being used in these new facilities. And Andrew, I want to push back a little bit on the service coordinators, because I'm really curious. I know that they also provide assistance to tenants who can't pay their utility bill or who are behind on rent. And I've talked to hundreds of Twin Pines tenants over the last 5 years, in Lebanon and Hartford. And what I hear is that those service coordinators are great to help you get caught up on rent. They're great to get you help with your utility bill, but they are not at a case management level where they are helping people fill out applications for insurance, helping people get connected with recovery services or mental health counseling, and following up to say, hey, did you make that phone call and get connected with that mental health organization? Maybe we need to make a definition between case management and service providers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I'm just curious, like, are these service coordinators actually getting people embedded in mental health services, or are they just kind of there to answer questions if a tenant has them?
They will. It depends on the situation, and it depends on the level of engagement on the part of the resident. One of the challenges that we face, across the portfolio, is residents have to be willing to engage. And I'm glad to hear that, resident services folks are doing a good job at helping people catch up on rent, finding resources in the community to do that, whether it's Listen, whether it's some of the programs in the state of Vermont. I'm glad to hear that they're helping people with utility expenses, because we find that, sometimes those are the issues that allow people to become homeless because they're not able to do that. And again, I would say they are there to make the connections with services. They are not service providers. We're not running a treatment program. We're not running a domestic violence program. We're there to say, here's headrest, here's whatever there is in the community in an effort to try to make people make those connections so that they're aware of those services. At the end of the day, their tenancy is not dependent on whether they engage in those services. We wish that they would, and we can, we encourage people to take advantage of those, and I'm glad that we have somebody who's making those connections. So I'm sure there's more that we could be doing. There is some state support coming in for this program now, so it is, we have a position that the state of Vermont is funding, as is the case with our peer organizations around the state. So that's something new. And again, we're looking at how well are we doing with preventing evictions and getting people the supports they need to stay housed. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I could just ask another question. In your strategic plan, you outline a lot of goals around property management. And I guess my question is, without changing the structure or, for example, swapping out some of those service coordinators with case managers, or raising that level of engagement with tenants and with service providers, I guess, how do you expect to achieve, how do you expect to make a change if you're kind of good with the model that you have now?
So are you asking if I'm satisfied with where we're at in terms of resident supportive services and whether that model works? I mean, again, I think one of the challenges is to go from a resident supportive service model to a case manager is you are dramatically shrinking the size of the portfolio that people are serving. So at the 18 units at 747, and there are 12 units that are also have a case manager function. 4 of those are at Riverwalk, and the other 8 are at Mountain Vale, and those positions are paid for by service dollars that come through the state of Vermont. And so, but just to kind of give you a sense, you have essentially 15 people, a ratio of 15 residents to 1 case manager. And that's very different than what we're able to achieve with a big portfolio and having to go out and raise philanthropic dollars to pay for those services. Other than the grant position that we've gotten from the state of Vermont, we're raising those philanthropic dollars for resident supportive services. So it's a challenge. It is a challenge.
Yeah, and I definitely want to acknowledge that you're in such a difficult position, and tonight was probably really difficult for you, and I appreciate you still being here with us and sticking through it. And I just want to say that I think that you guys have an opportunity to be a really radical player in setting how we do affordable housing and how we work with really vulnerable community members. And that we want to support you in doing it. I mean, we have, because what we're seeing on the town side, as I mentioned earlier, is that the response when we don't have a radical or different approach is police response. And not only does it raise the cost for residents who live here and pay property taxes to hire more and more patrol officers, it's also a disservice to the vulnerable communities that we say, hey, we want to get you guys services, we want to get you guys housing, and then over time, it's actually just met with police response like it would be in other models. So I just want to say that we want to support you. I would love to see our outreach committee, which is through our police department, kind of get back off the ground. It's in a little bit of a hiatus transition right now. And find out how we can work with organizations like Twin Pines and with the Haven and with community members who may seem really riled up, but really are coming from a place of care to figure out how we can all kind of make a improvement to the situation. So yeah, I just want to say that my hesitations around approving this grant are not that I don't want housing or not that I don't think Twin Pines is a great organization. It's just that I don't want us to be Burlington in 5 years. I don't want everyone to, go move to Putney or Springfield from Hartford and say, oh my gosh, am I glad I got out of there. It's just like, the affordable housing and the homelessness and the addiction has just overtaken people's, livelihoods. So yeah.
Can I just
Sure,
wrap up just a
absolutely.
couple little comments here? Willtown, Upper Valley Haven. Nailed it that time. So I just wanted to say also, one thing, in partnership with Twin Pines and every other organization in this area, folks are always sending people our way for some of that more intensive case management services. I'm really, really impressed and proud of our service coordinator team that we have. And we have three service coordinators that just take walk-ins, right? So my office is right there when you walk in that front door. Probably shouldn't advertise that, but so people walk in, I hear them all the time, like, hey, like I need help with this. I need help with housing. My son is really struggling with addiction, and somebody will come out and talk to them. And I see that all day. So I just wanted to highlight that those resources are available, but it does require somebody to have that motivation to come in and seek it out. All right. So that is a absolutely crucial point of this. So I wanted to highlight that. I think also in terms of engaging with some of the community members that were here tonight and the police department, we've been at every single one of the public safety meetings that have been going on, to the point where I showed up. I've been to 2, I think, at this point, and we're the only service provider at that table, and it turns into, it's all about the Haven, and that's really not what we should be talking about. We should be talking about this community wide. But one opportunity that has been really cool is digging into some of the data points, and there's some data points referenced tonight, and it's really interesting, right? You get some of the stories behind these numbers, and one thing that we kind of highlighted alongside the police department that I thought was really important is like, sometimes the police come to us, I'll speak for us. They come to us because we have a good partnership, right? And like, it's a preventative measure to stop things from escalating further. It's somebody shows up that's fleeing domestic violence or is really afraid of their safety. And we have that relationship with the police department where they can come and help make the situation safer. So yes, there are significant challenges, but I also think it's a product of a good functional system that we have that relationship.
And little comment.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I was gonna make one other observation on so we did meet with the chief last week to talk about some of our concerns. And I think it was a good meeting, a productive meeting. I know as part of, sort of a strategy moving forward, we're going to be having some community meetings. We'd originally tried to get the police department to have a community meeting with us earlier at Riverwalk to help residents understand when they should call the police and when they shouldn't. And sometimes that issue, like I hear the number 200 and I'm like, yeah, 150 of those are noise complaints, right? I don't know the numbers, right? I would need to dive into the data, but having residents understand in a large building what's appropriate, what should go to property management, and what should go to the police department, and being able to kind of know in their heads, okay, this feels like I should be calling the police. So it's an education process. We do want people to feel safe. We want people to understand the police are there to provide protection. And we want people to feel like they can call the police when they need to. So there's a lot of work to be done, but again, we're committed to showing up at those meetings and being involved.
Another thought and question just related to the fact that you're a housing developer, and obviously there are issues that require a broader set of services that aren't all perhaps in the scope of what your organization has the expertise to provide, and you are providing some of it by raising dollars through philanthropy. But there's just a, a massive need, which I don't know what level of services are sufficient. But my question is, do you have a relationship, or what is the relationship with the HCRS? Like so what's the relationship there?
Yeah, so we work with HCRS on this side of the river and West Central Behavioral Health on the other side, where folks are having issues. And again, you all have access as well. So if somebody is working with Twin Pines, they may bring in HCRS. They may if they're working with the Haven may bring in HCRS. I will say the capacity of the system, the mental health system, is stretched, to put it mildly. It is not what it needs to be, nor is it where it should be. And unfortunately, sometimes that plays out in unfortunate ways, for sure. But we have relationships with all of those organizations and value the partnerships that we have.
So that's one source that the coordinating folks will be maybe connecting people to if they hear.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As feels like we're in the wind down mode. I just kind of want to check in with all four of you. So if we table this tonight and come back in 2 weeks, what we would anticipate as a board, I expect, is a new proposal that addresses some of the concerns that you've heard tonight. Do you have enough information at this point to bring back a proposal that we might then dig into?
And you're probably looking to me, Eric.
I'm looking. I'm
going to look at
town manager and
I'm looking at Lori, because Lori's been doing this longer than I have. I've only been doing this for 13, 14 years at Twin Pines. So, but I guess what I'm hearing, and if my sense is that you'd like some kind of proposal regarding a safety plan or some commitment from us on how we address issues. Is that, and again, I'm not sure what is being asked of me. Again, I'm sorry to be so thick.
No, it's fine. That's why I asked the question, because if we leave the room tonight and we haven't clarified that, then our chances of success on the 17th are not strong, right?
No.
So from my perspective, I look at page 12 of your strategic plan on resident and services engagement, and you've identified a number of, in addition to the goals and strategies, you've identified action steps. Let's see, there's somewhere down here, 5-year measures of success, outputs and outcomes. As I commented earlier about future boards being in a position to make decisions, if future boards were in the same position and could see some path of progress according to your measures of success, that would be compelling, right? There are shortfalls in the system, but here's what we're doing, and we've made progress on it. And where we haven't made progress, these are the reasons. Like, if that can be part of the conversation, I would think that it goes a long way to helping people develop a sense of confidence that we're not going down the wrong path here. Right? We're creating housing, and it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And here are the things that we're doing. So that's, I want to turn it over and let other board members weigh in, but that's one of the things that I've been intrigued about, just being able to show future boards like this is, and perhaps how did the organization and the town work together to receive a report and review a report on like an annual basis along those metrics. And I'm open to pushback and saying like, no, we're not going to do that or whatever, or here's why that's impractical or infeasible or won't make sense or whatever. I want to hear that as well if that's part of the response.
Are you asking for data? Are you asking them to do something that's going to produce data?
They have identified measures of success, and I would expect that their board will want to see how they're tracking according to those measures of those outputs and outcomes.
So,
and future boards here would also, I would think, find that compelling, like moving in the right direction or not moving in the right direction, right?
so I'm going to share with you, I will share with you, I'll be prepared to share with you and discuss with you how we stack up statewide. I mean, that is a measure of how we stack up in comparison to our peers in terms of outcomes and vacancy and speed of turning over units and things like that. It's probably not terribly exciting data, but it's a data set that I can provide, and you can see over time since COVID how we're doing. That's something that I am happy to kind of share with you. We do track data for the resident services position that I mentioned that is supported by the state of Vermont, by the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. So that is something else that we can do and share, because it kind of gives you aggregate data of our Vermont households on who's engaging and how they're engaging and what we're doing to keep people housed. Again, maybe that's helpful. I'm looking for a reaction if whether that's sort of getting at what you're hoping to see or understand. And again, we can compare that data to our peers across the state who are doing the same work in other communities.
I think Tim has a question.
Yeah.
So, well, there's a couple challenges here. Number one is I hear what you're saying, and I don't think that does answer it, but I would say that even if you got your answer, what would we do about it, right? Like, so we suggest that we're going to somehow monitor or have metrics, and we'll watch those, and then if they're deviating off that metric, where's the teeth in that? Like, what would we do, right? Or future boards do. So that's kind of where I have a problem with that, is the idea of like, well, you know, these are things you say you're going to do, and we want to make sure you're doing them. And then if our reports indicate you're not, then what happens? And it just gets very like messy and not very effective. I'm kind of going back to a little more of a nuts and bolts thing for me. That is that, you know, my career has been so convoluted, but I've managed everything from barrel farms to 16 apartments in downtown White River Junction to elderly housing in Woodstock and so on. And I think what happens a lot of times is that when people create a project, they grossly underestimate what the time it takes to manage it and truly have oversight and so on. And I think what a lot of people said tonight, yes, we have the drug addiction. Yes, we have all these other things that we've talked about tonight. But the fundamentals of like on-site management or following up with tenants or making sure a building is secure or making sure it's, you know, safe on whatever level. I'm just really struck by the fact of going back to some type of requirement or stipulation that when you have a building of scale, you know, you're suggesting 48 units. Now I had 16 apartments. I spent hours down there making sure the building was safe, making sure that tenants were not disrupting other tenants, making sure that, you know, there were all kinds of issues that came up. And that was 16 units.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do something of scale like this, of 48 units, they're not having on-site management or not having really rigorous controls and oversight of a property is going to be a problem. I don't care what your tenant mix is. So I just don't understand how we can continue to go down the road where we're building these large-scale developments and not demanding or requiring that overlay where we have on-site management that is responsible and accountable to the property. So.
Chair, may I
Yes,
respond? I think, Tim, we may be sort of on the same page, because the teeth, so to speak, as you put it, is some future board sitting here with the next application for you know, a community block development grant and deciding whether or not it makes sense to create more housing of the same type if things haven't changed, right? At least there's a trend line to look at. That's really the I'm not trying to hold this project up. I'm just trying to foresee some decision makers in the future. And I understand that there's a lot of things that are out of the control of the developers. But from our perspective, or from a future board's perspective, the only thing they can do is say like, this is actually quality housing that's moving us in the right direction. Or maybe the organization's overextended and we shouldn't continue down this path, or some decision making. Right? So that's what I'm suggesting. If we have some sort of, if the town receives some sort of annual report, that's at least a little bit of insight as to the direction that things are going.
Ashley?
Yeah, so for example, the kind of information that would be interesting or compelling to me in some sort of annual report would be what's outlined on page 13 of the strategic plan, and I think that's resident services engagement. You have listed high-level goals and strategies. The first section of that is in regards to retention, which is great. Again, basically this whole section of resident services and engagements of your strategic plan. I would love a report back on how all of these goals are being met. It lays out, engage residents to share their experiences and ideas to improve the quality of life of their properties. Ensure staffing structure matches the ongoing growth of programming. Like, this is all great. I don't know how you guys envisioned measuring it, but you do have outputs and outcomes to go along with that. And I think that's the kind of data I'm interested in.
Okay.
I don't know about other board members.
Did you have a question?
I just wanted to, if I could quickly circle back to the question of where the current property owner sits on all of this.
Let us know who you are.
Oh, sorry. Yep, John Hafner,
White
White River Junction. So yeah, the question about where the current property owner, and my understanding is that is BlackRock, and maybe this is a question for you, Lori, about where, because they are able to move forward, or they get a density bonus because they are including affordable housing in this. So they're kind of dependent upon this being a successful, even though they are not the applicant right here for this particular grant application, they are dependent upon the success of this grant.
So that you're asking if the failure of this project to go forward jeopardizes the much larger project that's already underway.
And if they would maybe see that, and also I'm just saying they have skin in the game here. I think that it's reasonable to expect them, if we have questions of, I think, this development, I think that they should then basically, I'm wondering if they are a larger entity. And back to the question of impact fees, is there a possible, as we're having these considerations of a new proposal and expectations on Twin Pines management, can we have expectations that they will provide further impact fees, or I don't know what the structure of that would be. I just, as we're making stipulations, I think of Twin Pines and for future board and future developments, I think it would kind of move us to also perhaps push back or reach out to them and say, like, your development is dependent on this thing coming through. We're hearing community feedback. Can we sort of demand more within the impact fee realm? I have no idea whether or not that's in purview, but I just think they're the current property owner. I wonder if they should have some level of expectations in these kind of considerations.
I will attempt to answer that on behalf of BlackRock but a caveat that that's a question obviously best directed to them. I will say it's a fully permitted project, right? So nice to want to be able to impose at this stage impact fees. Those fees are generally, or historically, I believe they were done earlier in the process and when people were making the decision whether to pursue a project or not. So I'm looking to Lori just to remind me the history of impact fees, because this was very controversial in the sense that developers, I'll think of Mike Davidson, would regularly advocate for getting rid of impact fees because it was a cost issue on the development side. So, but again, I am concerned about trying to impose additional fees on a project once it has been permitted.
I don't have an exact answer on that, but it does seem to me that what may be suggested is not necessarily on this project, but looking at the impact fees going forward, regardless of whether it's this project or something else. The project is permitted. There to go retroactively and ask somebody after they've started a project to now pay impact fees, I don't think is the way to go, but it is something that I know the board has had a question on that, and at some time you may want to dedicate some more discussion on that in the future, whether it applies here or to any other project. And impact fees are much broader than just for housing. And there's a lot of nuances to that I obviously mandates a much more comprehensive research and conversation. But I think what you're asking is because the property currently is owned by BlackRock, I don't know what their position is on whether or not they feel that they need to be engaged in the conversations about the future disposition of this property. And that may be something for Twin Pines to have as a conversation with BlackRock. Under the permitting process, it's a separate parcel, whether it gets sold to Twin Pines or to someone else. It's their project for affordable housing under the state's permitting process of Act 250, not at the local level. So that would be a conversation that would really have to occur at the state level with BlackRock, but it is not within the permitting purview that we've done. So.
Yeah, just where I ended on talking about the outputs and outcomes on resident, what was the term I used from the report? Resident services and engagement. It would also be helpful to know if you were able to, present something to us that you could report out, how you would capture that data. Like, for example, one of the outputs is knowing a number of residents who are receiving XYZ supportive services from Twin Pines. How will you gather the data to say? And maybe that's a bad example because there you could just look at the service coordinator and see their caseload.
Right. We see their caseload. And then one of the things that we do, one of the outcomes of this exercise that we have engaged in over the last few years is making sure that we're doing a regular resident survey every year. This year we had just under 30% of the residents participate, and in terms of households, actually pretty good, right? If you can get a third of anybody to show up and do anything, I think we just feel pretty good about that. We do have breakdown of how people are engaging with resident supportive services and what they're getting. To your comment earlier about rent problems and concerns, interestingly, it's only 18%. And utilities was 13%. And then we looked at health at 8%. Food security was like 6%. Work issues 3%. Neighbor and property issues was 32%. So they're having to play that role of kind of helping people how to learn how to be good neighbors and how to be respectful of one another in a big building or a small building. It sometimes doesn't matter, but we do have some of that data which we could share.
So if I could just sort of make a suggestion on where we could go in the next step here. I think it does warrant some reaching out to other communities and other nonprofits and find out a little bit about, they are obviously probably facing the same circumstances. And even traditional and not just regular market housing. And I suspect we have some people here that can help between Twin Pines and the Haven of trying to get some ideas of what have you done. Brattleboro had set up some very interesting community dynamics in terms of what they're doing. Lexi and I had the opportunity to participate in a really good workshop on that a year ago. I know the police department is looking at the same type of system. And it is an engaging process between all the members of the community coming together, from the police, from the public health, from the residents, from the tenants, and from the landlords. That's a process that gets built out over time, and it takes time. But I think that there may be some lessons to be learned from that as to what might be applicable here, maybe not. But I think the engagement process that you were talking about It takes a community, it takes a village. That's really what we're talking about here. That we start putting in place some of the concepts of that it's much broader than what's happening in Twin Pines. And that it's happening all over within our communities. And I say communities because it's just not Hartford. So maybe there's some lessons to be learned there of what we can start that conversation in that is going to be building out over time something, and to be responsive to the concerns that we've heard in the community, to be responsive to the concerns that we've heard with the providers and our housing committee coming together and really looking at what is going to make a difference. So we're not in the same place that others are today in 5 years. It's not going to be a simple answer. I don't expect that we'll come back to you with something that's, fully engaged, but maybe we can have an outline of starting the conversation and starting the community building dialogue.
Okay, let's try and wind down here.
Yeah, just to that point, Lori, I appreciate that. I would recommend that, I don't know how much you've talked with some of the property managers at Vermont Housing Authority, but I've also canvassed all of their properties and I've talked with dozens of their tenants, and I didn't have the same concerns coming up. I don't know what is so different in their model. I think in some ways it may be a negative in that it's really strict and there's no funny business and people just get the boot, and that's not what I want either. But I feel like there's several Vermont Housing Authority units in Hartford and they seem to be keeping it a little more tight. I don't know.
Yeah, I can speak to that, and if you'll indulge me, one last question.
Make my last statement because I don't think I'll get to talk again after you talk. And then the other big one that I wanted to hit home for both of your organizations is the affected community part. Like it's non-negotiable. Well, for your bylaws on your board, you have that. The Haven, I really encourage you guys. I know about the services at the Haven because I utilized all of them. And I lived in subsidized housing and I was homeless. And there's a lot of things that get looked over by service providers and caseworkers when nobody within the organization has ever lived the reality that the population they're serving has lived. And there are all kinds of amazing models. HCRS is a great example where they have an entirely, I forget what the word they use is, it's not affected community, but all of their staff training is co-led by people who are either in recovery or who are living with mental health. And it shows in their work that it changes the way that you manage your organizations. And so I just would plead with you guys that if you took one step after tonight to do some research, is how can you get some affected community members a seat at the table, not just talk to them, but a seat at the table in a position of influence. So yeah, that's all. Thank you guys both.
Yeah, and I will briefly say, one of the realities in Vermont that affects an organization like Twin Pines or our peers elsewhere in the state is that when we're developing new housing, we are committing to providing housing opportunities for the poorest folks in the community, people who are homeless, people who are veterans. And that dynamic has changed the population that we serve dramatically since I started, in part because that's where the focus has been on the states, on trying to make sure that we're serving the lowest income folks in the state that we can serve. And that means that they often are coming with issues and challenges that are harder than what folks who are getting into Vermont state housing units, interestingly enough, because they haven't been developing a lot of new housing. And so the dynamic has sort of shifted where over time we're probably helping and housing folks who are harder to help in house than in some cases Vermont state housing.
That's fair. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here and presenting. I'm going to make a motion if
Yes,
we're ready for that.
absolutely.
You're ready for it, I know.
Yeah.
I'm going to move to table the consideration of the application for the VCDP funding for affordable housing project at 444 Sykes Mountain Avenue until the meeting at the 17th.
Is there a second? Second by Miranda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And it's 6-0.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
your
you very
time
much
and your
for all
attention.
of
And thank you for the
your
quality of
time.
questions. And, you know, I do appreciate it. The hot seat is hot here, but that's what I signed up for. So, you know, hopefully we come out of this with a better project and a better understanding of some of the challenges that we're facing and a better community as a result. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, you too.
I would love to meet
Well,
you
yeah, we'll
sometime. Yeah.
Okay, so can you hang in there for the annual report, Lori?
I'm just gonna grab some water.
Do you have a choice?
Yeah, I do want to,
No.
do you want, I'll just wait until last second.
Oh, I didn't know she left.
Yes, she just went to get some water.
Yeah.
She'll be right back.
They've encouraged you to proceed.
I'm sorry, I thought it was just a moment.
You're just
Okay.
being polite.
Okay,
Rare
so
quality.
this is real quick. This is an annual process that we go through every year, looking at our TIF projects and just make sure. Okay, so specifically what we're looking at is the annual report, and we've had to do this every year since we had the program started in 2011. Now we're coming, you know, into our reporting period of time for fiscal year 25. It seems like it was a while back because we're dealing with so many things into the future, but it's fiscal year 25, which is July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. And it's dealing with the grand list that was posted in April 1 of 24. So that's kind of 3 behind where you are actually working on. The assessor's office is actually working on today, or 2 behind. So the real quick of it is that we're required to present this to you. There's not really anything to vote on other than, you know, the processing process, but it's for you to make sure that the select board has been informed as to the current status. Now, because we are undergoing a process right now for our final debt, you've gotten some of this information already, but a lot of it was beyond what we did in fiscal year 25. So I'm going to be focusing on that part of it. You know, real quickly, it is looking at what have we accomplished in terms of the valuation of the properties in the TIF district and the growth in that valuation since 2011 when the district was established. And so what you can see under the municipal, we've more than doubled the valuation within the district in that time period, which is a pretty good accomplishment, particularly given that when we put forth the $13 million projects that we would have by the end of our you know, time of implementing, we were actually under where we are today. So we've already exceeded the overall program goals, and we're not quite done with our process yet. So that's really good to see. And then in looking a little bit more going forward, how does that translate into the actual dollars coming into the program? And as you know, we capture 75% of the taxes from that new growth, and that's called the increment. And so it's the tax increment, and that's 75% in fiscal year 25 produced. There you can see it's quite a bit of money, and it's over 829,573, and you can see the division there between municipal and education. We also report in on what have we accomplished in terms of the project list. This was a year where we were doing a lot of catch up and getting ready for the next round. So we were closing out some projects, finishing up some loose ends. And so a lot of that was focused on getting completion of our Courier Street redevelopment, what we call the Courier Street extension between Gate Street and south, and between South Main. Finishing that up, we still have a little bit left to do there in this, which will be in the current 26th fiscal year report. And then we have a little bit more that we did on the parking lot itself. And now we're really been doing a lot of the planning going in for this last final TIF project. So it was an interesting year when you look at job creation. We had a lot of job creation, but then we had some jobs that we lost. So we're actually in the negative. First time I've ever seen that, but that's kind of, happens sometimes. But we're getting new positions in there as well. So I do want to note just a couple items that we're going through on a correction on the report. So under current parcels, that really should be 155. So that's in the first page, second column, you'll see parcel information, and the current number of parcels should be 155. And then under our, if you go down to the second to last grouping called other TIF fund income, there were some issues of interpreting some of the information with us opening and closing an account. And then in terms of when it was deposited, so that really total should be $37,775, and then that's split evenly between education and municipal. So those are the main corrections we have on there. We always find maybe a little bit of a tweak here or there as we're working this through with our auditors. These are some of the things we did see. So the motion before you is to basically accept the report that you've seen it. You're basically saying we've seen it. And then authorizing the town manager to make any necessary changes, which he will delegate to me most likely. And then sign the
Good idea.
And then there are 2 certifications on the form that you'll see at the very end of the page there. That was in the document that you received. And there's some other certifications that are required in terms of the grand list numbers. And Rick Vincent, our assessor, and myself will actually be signing those certificates, the certification. So once you say, great, looks good, I don't have any major questions, we always can come back and do report outs at any time. This is just the one that's required once a year in this manner. So, and that's the end of it, and hopefully, okay, move on.
So I will ask if anybody has any questions for,
I'll try.
or a motion.
Yeah.
There's a motion down there.
Can I make these quick, just a couple clarifying questions? You mentioned here the state courthouse, which we know is getting a major reno. That's not a taxable property, is that correct?
Correct.
And
Payment in lieu of taxes?
That we don't count. I don't know how that is.
so, yeah, so
It
that
doesn't show up.
was kind of my other thought around that, is that, the argument is that the state owns a decent amount of property in Hartford, and if it has X value, that there's some kind of token payment, if you will, to say, hey, we acknowledge we have.
I wouldn't call it token. I mean, I know it's not full value, but I think it's substantial.
What is the number though, when you say substantial?
That's a good question.
When I looked at it, it looked like 140,000, which I consider token.
Okay,
I mean, it's in our budget stuff.
right.
And I think.
That
it's
bears
worth looking at
research,
because
yeah.
the state has done a significant improvement, not to suggest that would ever become a commercial taxable property, but I just think that it's something to kind of watch, because arguably with inflation and so on, that payment in lieu of taxes should sort of follow inflation on some level. And I think it's been pretty stagnant for a while, actually. So that was just a question about that. And then, so you mentioned here, you're not going forward in final phase filing for the TIF districts for what you're calling Railroad Row Extension and Parking Phases 1 and 2. Do you know why that is the case?
Well, we actually tried to do that at one point, and the project got sort of canceled. There wasn't enough interest. There were challenges that we faced in terms of bringing together the properties in that and the funding that was necessary to do that. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't be pursuing that, because in one of our multimodal conversations that we're having, but within the limitations of what we have in terms of our budget, which is $13 million, and we're proceeding with finishing up what we can. We know we have a doable project there within the context of the TIF district. But certainly that is one of the things that I think we're now at a point, maybe through the conversations that we've had about multimodal, in terms of the courthouse being done, the differences in what's happening with the railroad properties, that because the TIF program may be closing down in terms of the money that we can recapture under the TIF program, doesn't mean that the work that made it possible for us to get to this point will close down. That's going to continue on.
Yeah, and just a sort of thought around that my experience is that the state land that they own that is parking, I think there should be a kind of a dialogue review about how that's utilized, because it's pretty pertinent to the town at large, and yet it's been a little bit in flux in terms of who can use that parking. It's a pretty critical asset that I acknowledge that the state owns, but I think they should be having a dialogue with the town about how that parking is actually utilized.
Right. Well, we'll have to get into that a little bit, because there are some permitting issues that revolve around that use of that parking.
And then,
but certainly.
Yeah, and then you have this thing you're calling, it's kind of item 5, kind of on the back of the report, says listen development block E. What is that?
Which
So I'm sorry, how would I know what this is? It's part of your report under performance indicators.
Okay.
Item 5, and it says listen block E. I don't even know what that is.
Okay, so I know, and the number on these things. So when we created the TIF district, we put together a comprehensive plan, which. If you remember the map that we had for this, and I apologize, there should have been the map attached to this, but we had broken out the whole area. This was more like a master plan than any one little slice of the downtown. And we had mapped out public infrastructure improvement projects throughout the whole area. And then we also identified what is the private sector development that we had a sense of might be happening at that time. And so, in some of these projects, the way it got put together, and we'll never do this again, and thank God they won't. It was at different stages. We had to say year 1, year 2, year 3, we're going to do this over here, and we're going to do this over here. And then they had to consolidate it into this cryptic statement. Probably I'm the only one that's going to be able to ever interpret it, but I try and leave enough data in here so that in our annual report, so that you can understand it. The Listen property actually at one time, as you may know, was not the Listen. And so in that block area, we gave each block area a title, and we color coded it, and we even gave it an ABC, so that we could track what we were doing vis-a-vis over time. But the Listen basically developed. It developed on its own even before we were able to put in place anything more. The intersection was identified. So we've actually completed out the Prospect Street and the Listen property and any of the improvements on the street that were necessary. And that's been completed, and through a variety of ways.
And they don't pay taxes, correct?
I you know what? I don't necessarily, I'd have to look at the thing, but they may be in that category of tax-free. So,
cool.
Yeah. So when property, and we had this situation, when properties transferred at one point, whatever was taxable in 2011 in our grand list at that time, if something became non-tax, it then has to get recorded as such. So every parcel, we have the history on what has occurred since 2011. And those were properties like the former Legion building was non-taxable, but now is taxable. So we swap it back and forth. We actually had in our first year that we were collecting and reporting on this, we went below our OTV and we had to pay a little bit to the state because they held the line there. So if they were due their education fees, we had to pay, but we've made that up quite a bit since then.
And then one more question. So I mentioned this to you before, this town square parking lot project, which I'm definitely looking forward to getting done. Just the concept of like the vetting and the dialogue around that, within the town. I mean, I know you made a plan, but I just feel like it would be really nice to run that plan back through the downtown interest.
Which is
and
the
say,
plan
like,
to do that,
hey, what do
yeah.
you think? Is there anything else we can kind of tweak here?
Right, and that's the
Rather-
intention. We've
Yeah.
actually got some interesting ideas that we have really within our, between Public Works, Parks and myself, looking at what we can do, and we really want to make that space more multi-purpose so that we can do the little concerts there. We can have seating areas. We can have a canopy that'll be, protect us against the weather. And then in the wintertime, we may have to, close down that overhead canopy so that, whatever it is. But we really want to look a little bit more so that it's less green space, but multi-purpose, but bringing the green in through a kind of creative ways, like with the big planters and the other stuff. So I think you're gonna, once we can really dig into that in the next couple of months.
Thank you.
Lexi's gonna take on some of that.
Eric, did you have a question?
I'm going to make a motion unless other board members have questions.
I don't think we're ready for it.
Very well then. I move to accept, have the select board accept the fiscal year 2025 TIF annual report to be sent to the Vermont Economic Progress Council and authorize the town manager to make any changes as necessary and to sign the certification form.
Is there a second? Second by Miranda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
6-0.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks and good night.
So we have moved the remarks from the AARP regarding walkability of downtown White River Junction to the 17th. So then we will move to commission reports. Eric, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Try to be as brief as possible here. A commission report from the Conservation Commission. They are once again hosting the Environmental Stewardship Mix and Mingle. This event is scheduled for March 12th at 5:30 p.m. More information will follow, I'm sure. This year's event seeks to broaden participation beyond Hartford and include Upper Valley organizations that are engaged in environmental stewardship work, including other town conservation commissions. From the Historic Preservation Commission, the commission plans to seek a CLG grant, which stands for Certified Local Government, certified that is to apply for matching grants for preservation projects. For an archaeological project, staff liaison Matt Osborne and the commissioners are evaluating what type of project would be most appropriate. One option being considered is a townwide overview, which might be a good first step given the potentially large number of valuable archaeological sites in Hartford. So that deadline is the 12th as well. And finally, and forgive me if this was mentioned in a town manager report or SIGAX, but I realized that I didn't mention that the installation of the Wilder historical marker was completed at the end of October. If you haven't seen it, you can find it at the north entrance of Kilowatt Park. Thanks to the residents, Philip Sargent, Harry Kendrick, and Bonnie Arnold for providing the drive behind this project, to the Historic Preservation Commission and Matt Osborne for guidance, to Great River Hydro for a substantial donation, and to Parks and Rec for the installation work. Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda. Okay,
From the Energy Commission, I'm just going to highlight one part of the discussion. This is not everything they talked about, but they did welcome two guests, both the outgoing and the incoming directors of Advanced Transit came to the meeting in part to sort of build a collaboration partnership around continued discussion around multimodal transportation options for downtown Hartford. And Terry Palmer is the name of the incoming executive director, and her background was as the New Hampshire statewide mobility manager, which is not a role I was aware of, but she worked very closely with the New Hampshire Department of Transportation. So has a lot of knowledge at the state and local level around transportation. So I hope she can be a great partner for Hartford.
Thank you, Ida. Tim,
Nothing to report.
Ashley?
Nothing to report.
I have nothing to report. Okay, consent agenda. I have a motion here. Usually makes it, so.
Can I suggest one addition being future meetings approved? That you add the February 22nd workshop as among those upcoming meeting dates.
February 22nd.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Tim?
I move that we approve the payroll ending 1/31/2026, approve AP manifest 1/30/2026 and 2/5/2026. We approve the meeting minutes of 1/20/26 and 1/22/2026. Future meetings approved 2/17/2026, 2/22/26 workshop, 3/5/2026 organizational, 3/17/2026, and 3/31/2026.
Is there a second? Okay, Miranda seconds. All in favor, say aye.
May I ask a brief question about the manifest? Is that appropriate here?
Um,
Or should I not do that?
No.
Okay.
I don't know if I'll be able to
You
answer
may
it.
not be able to answer, but, and maybe if it's appropriate, I could certainly email you these things tomorrow if that's
If,
more.
do you feel that they're sensitive in terms of identifying
Um,
people and their benefits or anything?
No, it's just, these are
Okay.
more broad.
Sure,
questions,
then
but
I'd be
you-
happy to take them at any forum.
Okay, so I'll just, if that's appropriate, I'll just email them tomorrow.
Yeah,
And
that'd be
that's-
great. That'd be great. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So that passes 6-0.
Wait, who seconded that?
Miranda?
Did.
Okay, you're okay.
He's the seconder tonight.
This is a motion to adjourn for something. Someone wanna-
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Cutting into the turf.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, John.
Thank you,
Yeah,
and don't
thanks,
forget,
Ryan.
there are documents to be signed.